Good morning from Beijing and welcome to our special coverage on China's Shenzhou-16 mission. I'm Yang. Today, the three-man crew is heading back to Earth. They've been living in low Earth orbit for around 5 months on board China's Tiangong space station. Their spacecraft will soon be touching down at the Dongfeng landing site that's in northern China's Inner Mongolia autonomous region. On May 30th this year, China's Long March rocket sent these 3 astronauts into space from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in Gansu province, and they are Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu, and Haichao. The Shenzhou-16 mission is the first manned mission since China's space station entered its application and development stage. And during their time in space, the crew conducted multiple key tasks, including large-scale in-orbit tests and experiments. And they also carried out extravehicular activities, installed extravehicular payloads, and conducted space station maintenance. The 3 taikonauts welcomed their Shenzhou-17 counterparts on board the Tiangong just last Thursday and completed the in-orbit crew handover. So this is what we know about their situation so far. The China Manned Space Agency says the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft carrying the 3 taikonauts separated from the Tiangong space station at 8:37 p.m. Beijing time on Monday. And after separating from it, the crew took a high-definition panoramic image of the space station combination with Earth as the background. They are on their journey home, and rescue teams at the Dongfeng landing site stand ready for their homecoming. Now for the latest, we're joined by our reporter Zheng Yibing, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Hi, Yibing. So what do you have for us there?
Well, yes, Yang. Yes, just like you said, they are on their journey back home. So right behind me on the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, known as BACC, on the big screen, we can see 2 live streaming videos. On the top is showing the status of the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft and circling around the Earth and getting ready to get back to the atmosphere. And below, we can see the 3 taikonauts and the Chinese astronauts, the commander Jing Haipeng sitting in the middle, and also the space pilot Yangzhu, and also the specialist, the payload expert, Haichao. They are inside the Shenzhou-16 spacecraft. Almost a half year ago on the May 30th, I witnessed their launch mission from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, and now, almost half year later, here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, I'm seeing their return mission at the Dongfeng landing site in the Mongolia autonomous region. And here at the BACC, all the working staff have been working closely and tirelessly for the moment. And according to the China Manned Space Agency, the Shenzhou-16 manned spacecraft is about to get back to the atmosphere in coming half an hour, and they are going to have this very significant mission. So that's the situation here. I'm going to update you in the later programs. Back to you, Zhang.
Great, thank you so much, Zheng Yibing at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. The Shenzhou-16 crew were on board the Tiangong space station for around 5 months, and here's Zheng Yibing again with the highlights of their mission.
Shenzhou-16 is the first manned mission since China's space station entered the application and development stage. The 3 crew members are Commander Jing Haipeng, spaceflight engineer Yangzhu, and science payload specialist Haichao. The 3 were sent into China's Tiangong space station on May 30th to take over the orbital outpost from their Shenzhou-15 peers who had stayed there for 6 months. Their mission is China's 11th manned space mission and the 5th crewed flight to Tiangong.
During their mission, the Shenzhou-16 crew conducted multiple key tasks, including large-scale in-orbit tests and experiments, and a space lecture to students on Earth.
More specifically, Li worked with researchers on the ground in a number of in-orbit experiments, including fluid physics experiments and cold antenna interferometer setup. And they carried out extravehicular activities, installed extravehicular payloads, and conducted space station maintenance. The crew members gave the science lecture from space in September to students around the globe. This marked the 5th lecture of the Tiangong class series since 2013. The journey of the Shenzhou-16 crew is a maiden flight of China's 3rd generation of astronauts, or known as taikonauts. Therefore, it has very great significance to China's manned space program. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Beijing.
At the Dongfeng landing site, everything from equipment to personnel is ready for the return of the Shenzhou-16 crew. Our reporter Sun Ye has more.
Song Chao will take this helicopter for Shenzhou-16's return mission. He said he will be our eyes and ears, extremely good ones too.
We are going to be everyone's eyes and ears, really keen ones too. This is because our job is to ensure smooth communication during the return process. The most crucial part of it is to quickly and efficiently transmit images from the landing site. The images you often see, such as the famous blooming of the parachute, are among the ones we transmit.
He is part of a 5-helicopter team that patrols the sky during the return mission. Around 100 vehicles of various kinds are also deployed on the ground. This marks the 5th time that taikonauts have returned to the Dongfeng landing site. The most recent return was in June, when the Shenzhou-15 crew came back safe and sound.
Considering the possibility of heavy sandstorms this autumn, we've conducted multiple targeted trainings and had dust protection done for the equipment. We also prepared spare parts.
Song has been working on space return missions since 2011, starting with the Shenzhou-8 mission. He said that throughout the years, their team has adhered to one motto, always working to ensure that nothing is amiss. CGTN 9全.
And we're joined here in the studio by Professor Yang Yuguang, Vice Chair of the Space Transportation Committee at the International Astronautical Federation, and Mr. Xu Yansong, former Director of International Cooperation at the China National Space Administration. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in this morning, bright and early. So I'd like to start by recapping the Shenzhou-16 mission with you guys as we're waiting for their return. So this crew stood out in quite a few ways, right? So one is the composition of the crew, and the other is that they are starting their mission in this new phase for China's space station development. So can we talk a little bit about that to begin with?
Well, I think the crew started with Jing Haipeng. The capital was the captain. He was born in 1966. The only pilot on board, because pilot, we call it an aircraft pilot. He used to fly fighter jets and cargo jets. But the other two are professional, let's say, professional scientists. And even one of them is a professor in the University of Beihang University with the glass. So these are quite outstanding combination, because this is a marking of the operation of the space station, and that needs science to be attending the experiments on board. And we know there's three segments of the station. With the addition of the core section, which is Tianhe, the Wentian and Mengtian are all experimental segments, and also we have heard that they have done external experiments, including installation of facilities and EVA activities. So all of these are standing out for scientific communities, because they're operated not by pilots, by Air Force, but by real scientists.
And that is the first time for China, isn't it, to have these scientists up there? And what about the fact that they are there for the start of this application development stage then for the space station, Professor Yang? How significant do you think that is in the overall, the view of China's space development so far?
Before your questions, being a friend of Mr. Jing Haipeng, I'm very proud of him, because he is the first one of China to conduct 4 flight missions. So he also made this history. Moreover, this is the first time we have all 3 categories of astronauts: the pilots or commander, the flight engineers, and the payload experts. So this is the first time. Also, that this brings home for the common people. That Mr. Gui Haichao is not from the PLA, and also he is a professor from Beihang University, and he wearing glasses.
Oh, we watched his class together when they did that lecture.
Yes, exactly. During the educational lecture, he do wear his glasses.
And you can tell he's a professional
absolutely
teacher.
not through the during the ascending phase and during the descending phase. I did ask. You see, it's very correct that during this application and development phase, the major task of our Shenzhou-16 crew is to conduct all kinds of and intensive scientific research work. It's very, very complex. I'm very interested in that. You know that inside our Tiangong space station, there are 25 racks dedicated completely for scientific research. 4 in the Tianhe, 1 core module, 8 in the Wentian module, and 13 in the Mengtian module. Moreover, we also have more than 50 points outside the station, which can connect all kinds of payloads to conduct scientific research outside the station. So they already have so many scientific research works either inside the station and outside the station. I believe the results they get already very, it will be a very big challenge for our scientists and engineers after they came back to the Earth, and when our scientists and engineers get the samples, maybe they have a lot of work to do.
They'll have a lot to bring back as well. So let's talk a little bit more about some of these experiments then. What are some of the firsts for China for the 16 mission?
Well, I think the cabinet has composed many experimental facilities. One of them, for example, is the combustion chamber, and that is the very first for the Chinese space community to conduct a combustion experiment in orbit. Before we have the space station, we used to use a return capsule, what we call a return capsule, because once you launch into outer space, you have to recover that capsule back to Earth, and that capsule had experienced let's say cosmic rays and microgravity environments, and all of those can be used for microgravity experiments and testings, including previous Shenzhou missions. All of those can be used as what we call microgravity testing facilities. But right now we have a space station which is more complicated with men attended. So a number of more sophisticated facilities can enable us to do experiments that we have never done before with capsule or with the return capsule, either manned or man-manned. So the facility is unprecedented, and we know that we have an international space station which also have similar or even more sophisticated facilities, larger areas. But we are doing innovative experiments. For example, with the microgravity and application programs, we're also calling international cooperation with international partners. And one of the criteria is to have unprecedented and innovative experiments that has never been done in outer space. So we're doing something new, and we're doing something innovative, and we're using facilities onboard the station, including what we call exposed racks that can be doing experiments in outer space without, in a vacuum environment.
Like
that
radiation exposure as well, right?
Radiation and microgravity exposure that is, unprecedented and unavailable on Earth. So we're doing experiments that we have never done on Earth before.
And Professor Yang, we also saw something interesting when we watched that space lecture from the Shenzhou-16 crew that time, and that was the bare flames on the space station as well. That was definitely a first, isn't it?
What you and Mr. Xu mentioned is we can recognize this as a very great improvement of China. We can still remember that also Mr. Jing Haipeng during the Shenzhou-17 meeting in 2008. You know that during that mission, Mr. Zhaigang and Mr. Liu Wenming conducted the first EVA of China. Although you know that Mr. Jing Haipeng stayed in the re-entry capsule to monitoring the whole process, but because of the malfunction of the sensor, there is a fake alert of fire. So Mr. Jing Haipeng called, there is a fire in the orbit module. You know, that is already in a vacuum condition. How can it be a fire? Right. So that's a malfunction. But from this example, we can see that how serious it is if any fire happened inside a cabin. So this time, you know, that we not only, as Mr. Xu mentioned, we will not only conduct this kind of combustion research inside our racks, actually speaking, with the methane to burn inside the combustion research racks, but also, you know, we can do that during the educational lecture. Right. And it is very interesting, you know, that because lacking of the convections caused by the gravity, the flame no longer is a slim one, but a spherical one. So this is a very interesting phenomenon, and the astronaut can lit the match inside the cabin. So you can see we will already be very confident, and it is safe enough for us to conduct this research and also this demonstration to the audience. Moreover, as you mentioned, this educational lecture we also have many other highlights. For instance, the Mr. Gui Haichao, a professor from the Beihang University, demonstrated the usage of the gyroscope in changing his own attitude.
Yes, that was interesting.
In fact, the control of the attitude of our Tiangong station is utilized by CMG. not China Meteor Group, but the control moment gyroscope with the 6 control moment gyroscope in the Tianhe-1 core module, and also other several control moment gyroscope inside the Wentian module. We can change the attitude of the whole station only using electricity. You know that if we use propellants, use engines, we will exhaust some of the very valuable propellant. But with the control moment gyroscope, we can change the attitude of the station very easily, only use electricity. You know that electricity is regenerative, so it saves a lot of energy and very valuable resources. So you can see, although it is educational example, but still it is very, very useful to the whole station. And also not only those pupils and high school students can get very useful information from that.
Yeah, he gave us a great demonstration of
yes,
that.
but also that it's very contribution to the education of the undergraduates and even postgraduates. So this is a really meaningful educational lecture.
Well, in terms of Haichao, so he's the payload expert, right? So what particular experiments was he in charge of? Professor Yang.
Mr.
Haichao,
although you know that he is the first payload expert in China, but actually speaking, his major field is engineering. So he got his PhD degree in Beihang University for one moment, please. We've already seen the videos inside our re-entry capsule. You can see Mr. Jing Haipeng is sitting in the middle. And
right.
On his left, I believe, is Mr. Yangzhu, and on the other side is Mr. Haichao. You may notice that Mr. Haichao has not wearing his glasses.
Let's have a listen to what they're saying there. I think they're just communicating to each other, or are they communicating to the ground staff there?
神舟4号报告，主反并网属奉旨已发出，完毕。
So that's,
北京明白。
They're just relaying some information to the ground team there, their status update from the Shenzhou-16.
Yes. So at this moment, the whole Shenzhou spaceship is still outside the atmosphere. So we have very good connections between the Shenzhou spacecraft and the ground with the help of the Tianlian data relay satellite.
So we're looking at the commander in the middle, and then to his left is... Can't really see his face there.
His left, I believe, is Mr. Yangzhu.
And
on
then
his right is Mr. Haichao.
And they're very busy right now looking at some manuals. What's likely to be in this this booklet that they're looking at?
They are holding the manual of the operations, not only include the routinary operations, but those in emergency cases. So they must remember all the options very carefully, because anything can happen. You know that the re-entry is a very risky process, not only for China but for all space capable nations. So the most dangerous part is for a flight mission is during the launch or the ascending phase and the re-entry.
But presumably they've already read this many times. They're very familiar with this. So I mean, on their way back, they left at, as we were saying earlier, 8:37 p.m. Beijing time, right? So up until now, that's already almost 11 hours. What will they have been doing on this return journey back?
You know, the station is about 397 kilometers above the Earth, above the sea level. So we know there's a very high altitude, and at that environment, there's no atmosphere, and there's what we call no drags from the atmosphere. So they have to then detach from the station. As previously we have seen that they're taking some photos, and they're taking their time to deorbiting. So they have to come down to a couple of maneuvers. One has to come down to about 200 plus, so that they have to change orbit from 400 to a lower orbit, almost half the altitude. And then they have to fine-tune that orbit, including attitude and altitude. So they have been doing that for the past 10 or 11 hours. And then they are coming to the final stage where they have to come another step down, where they are experiencing some drags from the atmosphere. And so there's many controls and many elements that needs to be carefully maneuvered before they insert themselves to the final orbit. of coming back.
So they kept very busy during this long journey back. I mean, not really any kind of spare moments to sit around and relax.
And this time, one difference from the previous mission is that, after detached or deorbited from the Tiangong space station, our Shenzhou-16 crew has a very special task to use their handheld high-definition camera to take the videos of the whole station. Okay,
right,
the first
so they're doing an
attitude
adjustment.
maneuver.
That's right. So every time that on the journey home, there's two times that they have to adjust their altitude, right?
Yeah. So you can see this is a 3D animation, but with which represents the real-time status of the vehicle. You see that it has turned 90 degrees in your direction to the left. So at this moment, the critical step will be the separation between the orbital module and the re-entry capsule.
So let's just look at this together. So at the very top is the orbital module, and then the return capsule is the part in the middle.
And then the propulsion module.
Service module.
And then service module, and then the two wings of the solar panels that help to power.
On the service module. Yes.
So first, we will separate the orbital module.
They've reached the adjustment for the altitude now.
The separation speed between the two parts will be 1
there's
to
the
2
separation right
meters
there,
per second. Oh, great. Already successfully separated.
How many meters per second?
1 to 2 meters per second. This to avoid the collision between the two parts. Because they're already in different planes, theoretically speaking. And then conduct the second attitude maneuver.
So this is now the second adjustment, and then the
to make the
module and
to make the rocket engines on the rear part of the propulsion module to the front.
So just to explain to us what each of these modules do, if you can. So we just saw the orbiting module leave and separate.
But the orbit module has been used for docking and rendezvous with the station, and it has the function like.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. They just announced that they've reached the second adjustment of the altitude, so
exactly,
they're
and then
on track now.
Yeah,
to come
and
back.
you can see the firing of the module. That's a little firing of the engines.
Yes, the
that is to
lights
adjust
inside.
the attitude of the capsule, so that they are ready for the separation of the service module with the capsule, and then the capsule can start re-entering into the ballistic that has been pre-designated. And the service module is providing a lot of functions, including the fuels. Solar panel provides electricity. So all the, let's say, all these functions and all these powers that supplying the capsule has been provided by the service module. After the separation, the capsule can only use the batteries on board.
Okay, the re-entry burn start.
Right, so we're seeing the
So you can
flames
see
at the
on
back.
the 3D animation on the top right of the screen. Okay,
Right, the
re-entry
engine is
burn.
on, that's right.
So, that in the propulsion module or the service module, as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have 4 main engines, each with a thrust of 2,500 newtons. Please notice that we only need 2 of them, so we can see the other 2 as a backup to ensure the safety return of our astronauts.
But if you can put that in a bit of context for us, when you say it only uses
2,500 newton. We use 2 of these engines for the re-entry burn.
So what you're seeing, the burning of the engine, including the engine itself and the fuels, are on the service module. Once the burn is done, the separation will occur. So the service module will conduct its final mission, which is to have what we call a brake burn or re-entry burn.
You may notice also on this 3D animation we can some smaller flames.
Yeah.
That is the flames of the attitude control engines and small engines. You know that during the burn of the main engine, we should keep the attitude of the vehicle stable. So we use the attitude control engines. There are multiple, more than 40 attitude control engines to change and to keep the attitude of the whole spacecraft.
Why do they only do the altitude adjustments twice? I mean, is there a reason for that? Can it be
because
done
the
in one go?
de-orbiting
or?
must face in the right direction. In our professional field, we call this the delta V. The delta V we given must be in a certain direction required, and also the certain amount of propellants exhausted. Only in this way we can enter the right re-entry trajectory to go down directly to the Dongfeng landing site.
But why not just adjust it in one go? Would that be technically
as you
more
already
challenging?
seen, because you know that we need to separate the orbital module first. So it is no longer needed to saving much of the energy. You know that the orbital module is more than 1 ton, about 2 tons also. So we must separate that first, and then we can save a lot of propellant for the re-entry. But you know that to avoid any collision, so the better choice is to separate that in the to a different orbital plane. As you've already seen, the first orbital maneuver is attitude maneuver is turned for 90 degrees. So with this measure, when the direction of separation is in the different.
So
okay, re-entry completed.
we no longer see the flames there.
So they have to check the parameters of the capsule. Once everyone is happy with the speed and angle, then there's a separation of the service module.
Once the service module is separated from the re-entry module, then what's powering the re-entry module?
It's basically a free fall. You can imagine if there's a basketball and there's a piece of paper, and you have to travel within this thickness of the piece of paper into the basketball to enter to the precise point where we can recover. So it's very precise control. You can see a lot of altitude and with the service altitude control engines firing. That is to fine-tune the beginning of the free fall, which is very important to the trajectory of the capsule.
Right, that's why it's so important that they get the module facing the right direction. And we can hear that right now they're just sending a series of commands and just checking in with the various different ground stations.
Yeah, the ground station is stretched out all the way from. I think this capsule once again is returning from Africa back to Pakistan on its trajectory to the Gobi Desert. So it's traveling from that direction. So we're seeing a series of ground stations checking their availability of signals on the Shenzhou capsule.
And that's of course very important to monitoring their safe return. So right now we're looking at to the right an image of the Dongfeng land.
I believe this video is taken from the vehicles in Dongfeng landing site.
The massive rescue.
So you can just see the dawn of the Dongfeng land site.
So the ground station not only tracks the capsule itself, but also provides parameters to the ground rescue control, rescue teams, so that they constantly updating the exact location which is predicted to be landing for the capsule.
So with the prediction for the locations, how big of a area would that be to start with?
You know that we have Beidou navigation satellite receivers on board our Shenzhou spacecraft. So after the re-entry plan we just witnessed, so there is several critical steps. One important step is to, based on the receiver of the Beidou navigation satellite signals, we can calculate the right velocity and the position of our Shenzhou spacecraft. So based on this, we can have a very precise prediction of the re-entry itself. But
precise to what sort of scale?
That depends on which phase you are in. You know that there are many errors that can cause a deviation. For instance, the density of the upper atmosphere. So it's very, so we cannot have a very precise prediction of that. And you know, during the re-entry, after separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsion module, we can have control of the re-entry capsule. You know, we also have a very unique propulsion system inside the re-entry capsule. It only changes the attitude in the roll direction. And also, you know that during the when the re-entry capsule dive into the atmosphere, we also have the aerodynamic forces not only in the flight direction but on the perpendicular direction to have lift. With the change of the attitude of the re-entry capsule, we can change the direction of the lift forces and then adjust the trajectory. So in different phases, we have different error.
So I'm interested to know then, in terms of this three-man crew, the rest of the crews, the last one and this coming one, I expect, are all going to be in the space station for about 6 months, right? The previous one was 6 months as well, but they only spent 5 months up there. Is there any particular reason for this?
There are multiple reasons can cause this arrangement. One thing I guess is that during the previous missions, that during the re-entry, maybe it already happened just before the end of November. At that moment, it will be very, very cold in the Dongfeng landing site. So this time we only conducted 5 months. So at this moment, it will be a very ideal season for the return of our heroes. And also, that every year we should launch the manned spacecraft twice every year. So if it is too late, maybe it is feasible for the April or May mission, but will not be very comfortable for the November or December, even December.
Right.
So this time we stayed there for 5 months, which means that this time we can go back home in October. So as I mentioned, it will be more comfortable than go back 1 month later in November. That will be very, very cold.
So then do you think this is a sort of pattern we'll see for future crews, 5 months, 6 months in rotation like this?
Yeah. So we still have some margin and also some flexibility to adjust the whole arrangement.
我是北京，下面通报返回舱第一次落点预报。
The first prediction.
落点经度，东经1洞洞度，动5分，
We're hearing the
动拐
location
秒。
prediction from
东
the
经
Beijing ground
1
force
洞洞度
for，
动
the
5分，
return,
动拐
the
秒。
landing
落点
location
纬
for
度
the
北纬
Shenzhou-16.
41度3拐分51秒，北纬41度
Very precise
3拐分51秒。
Well, this is the first prediction. We will even have more precise ones after that. We will
how
have
many?
maybe 4 times.
4 times,
中
yeah.
央领导，落点经度，东经1洞洞度。
It is repeated several times. So
Make
because
sure everyone
this
hears,
is very,
right?
very important for the ground team.
Right. So I mean, we're looking at this image right now of the landing site area, and it does look quite hazy there. Is this is this an okay condition for the return?
It's a normal condition, although that it's much better than that in November or December.
So visibility isn't too big of an issue here for
It's not a very
the
big
return.
issue, but that's in this operation phase of the Tiangong space station. So we must standing by for any emergency returns if anything wrong happened to the station. So we must stand there. We should think about the feasibility, and also that because the Tiangong space station orbiting the Earth in different altitude, in different phases, not like the Shenzhou missions before and the Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2 mission before. So we must have a wider range of the landing site to have multiple choices.
The Dongfeng landing site, that's not China's only landing site,
Not
is
the
it?
only one. In the years before, we used the Sizhiwang Banner landing site. It's in the 2,000 kilometers to the east of the Dongfeng landing site.
Okay.
Because that in recent years, with the population becomes more and more people in the Sizhiwang Banner, and also that we need a bigger one, so we changed that to the Dongfeng site. Another advantage to use the Dongfeng landing site is that that during the launch, we also need a rescue team because for anything wrong happen in emergency escape, we need the rescue team to rescue our astronaut. So with the landing site chosen as the Dongfeng landing site, we can combine the 2 teams together to save a lot of money. So this is another advantage.
It's very practical concerns
exactly.
here as well. And the rescue crew the safety search crew that's waiting for the Shenzhou-16, this is I read is much bigger than the last crew that was waiting for the Shenzhou-15. So they've got nearly 100 ground forces, I think, and also 5 helicopters.
It's still 5 helicopters. One will act as the commanding vehicle, and the other 4 to assist the commander.
And how would they be placed in the landing site? Would they be spread out in different locations, and then once we know the more precise location, they will gather?
It's like a matrix form, so that they're staying in one corner of the square.
Right.
Each corner of the square will have 1 helicopter with 3 helicopters on one line with a command helicopter.
So one in the center and then one on each corner.
There's nothing on the center because the center is giving
where the capsule will be coming from. Okay.
So there's a formation of these
blocking
matrix formation for the flight of the helicopters, a square
But either the helicopters and the ground vehicles will move constantly based on the prediction. As I mentioned, we will have at least 4 times of trajectory prediction based on the different phases. We have the data from as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have ground stations along the trajectory. And also we have the Beidou navigation satellite receiver on board our Shenzhou spacecraft.
And we're just hearing more information being relayed there saying that everything is normal.
Yeah, and the next step will be maybe several minutes later will be the separation between the propulsion module and the re-entry capsule. Yeah.
But if it can be so exact, if the final landing location can be really pinned down, then why is it necessary to have the landing crews so spread out in the first place? I mean, if eventually you can why not just have them all together and then send them in once the location is
There's no certainty for the capsule to return, because once it's separated from the propulsion or service module, it's on its own. The control is barely by the shape of the capsule itself, and also by the speed and the re-entry beginning point, what we call root point. And then you would have a very different varieties of factors, including even wind in the atmosphere once you have deployment of the parachute. So there are many factors that are affecting this re-entry process. You never know where exactly it's going to be land. We are only calculating by different parameters at different phases and different altitude. So we have to be very dynamic in terms of pin down the location of the capsule.
Right. So it makes sense to have them spread out so they can reach the capsule in the fastest time.
So what we see now, I believe, is a video taken from the camera mounted on the helicopter.
So there's no setting up of the camps and waiting for it to come back to your front yard. You have to be very dynamic in moving your squares around.
So it starts off with a search parameter of roughly how big? So say the different teams are all spread out.
Well, the total area of the landing site is about 12 or 13,000 square kilometers.
And eventually,
so it's very huge.
Okay, so eventually it'll get narrowed down to roughly...
Exactly. So after each trajectory prediction, it will shrink smaller and smaller, and finally a very precise one. But after each trajectory prediction announced by the commander in Beijing Flight Control Center, the ground vehicles and the helicopters will change their direction to the next predicted landing point.
Even that, we have what we call a landing site, but also we have a bilateral agreement with the country of Mongolia that in case this it did not land on the Inner Mongolia or land on other countries, we have to initiate that bilateral agreement to search and rescue our astronauts from other countries.
And who will be in charge of helping with the search mission then? Would it be Chinese
It will be Chinese in combination of the local authorities in Mongolia. So also on the international side, we also have 4 treaties. One of them is the Search and Rescue Treaty by all countries that should be open for the search and rescue of the astronauts in case they didn't land in their home country.
So would China already have crews stationed in these countries that they have the agreements with, just in case?
Not really, but in case of landing, we have a preparation of in all scenarios. But this is unlikely. But once you have these what we call malfunctions, we'll have to initiate this agreement. But that has never been done before. What we have a hard landing, which is landing on the surface of the land. Other countries, they have a return capsule that have a soft landing, which is on the sea. So there are many scenarios and many ways. And we also know that the shuttle, what they call a shuttle of the U.S. has also agreement and also contingency landing site in Chile, because they have different possibilities of returning of the astronauts. So this has to be made very safely for all humanity.
What are the pros and cons of a hard landing versus a soft landing?
Well, I think hard landing is very easy to have search and rescue, and also you have crews and facilities that is easy and ready. Soft landing is an approach that I wouldn't say obsolete, but has not been done recently, because the U.S. is not flying this soft landing process, and also I think this has started at the very beginning from the 60s by the US, using soft landing in the ocean. But you have to use return and search and rescue vessels and boats to go to the site, and also helicopters to rescue them. And also you have what we call it a water contingency, which means you might have a case of drowning in the ocean. But also, even in the same case, we do have also soft landing options for the Chinese astronauts.
Right.
We even had trainings in Qingdao and in Shandong province in the ocean to imitate the scenario of a soft landing by the Chinese capsule, which is, both ways are possible.
What would be theoretically more comfortable in terms of landing for the astronauts? Would it be a soft or a hard one?
Of course,
landing
that's
in the water.
It will be more hostile if you splash down in the sea, in the
More
ocean.
hostile.
More dangerous. Even if comparing with the forest or Gobi Desert,
Right.
if you land splash down in the sea, that will be more dangerous for astronauts. So they must be trained for this. That as Mr. Xu mentioned, we have this kind of training for the astronauts. This is a very necessary course for all astronauts, no exception. Even it is very interesting that several years before we conduct this kind of training with the attendance of foreign astronauts. Actually speaking, in Yantai, near the Shandong province, Mr. Matthias Mochier and also Miss Samantha Cristoforetti, one from Germany and the other from Italy, joined this training during several years before for the rescue in the sea. Moreover, all the astronauts must also be trained to survive. They can survive for more than 2 days in a very hostile environment, for instance, in the forest or in the desert. So, as the introduction by some major media of China, Mr. Gui Haichao and Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, because they are the first time conduct their flight mission. Just before their mission, they were also trained in the Gobi Desert and stayed there for more than 2 days. And they even need to drink their own urine to survive, because there are only a very limited supply of water inside
that they can carry
capsule.
back with them. Why would they not be able to carry more then, just in case? I mean,
because that we only
potential-
have a limited volume in the reentry capsule. That it is a very narrow space for 3 people, so we can
Yeah, they
only
look very
very
small.
limited supplies. And one interesting thing is that they even have pistols. They even have guns to protect themselves. For instance, maybe they will land possibly in an emergency case. They will land in the forest. Maybe there are
Wild
beasts,
animals,
yes,
right,
animals. So they have they have pistols.
So I understand that it's more dangerous, obviously, for them to be landing in water than potentially. But then in terms of the impact of the capsule reaching, capsule landing in water and capsule landing on the land, have we managed to reach a sort of technology where it is just as comfortable and cushioned for the astronauts?
You see
on
that to touch down on the land will be more rigid than splash down on the water. So we have 4 very small rocket engines. Then that we also have another very important device called the gamma ray altimeter. We can measure the precise distance between the bottom of the vehicle and the ground. So when the distance between the vehicle and the ground is 1 meter or so, it will ignite the 4 small rocket motors called the retro rocket, and the speed will turn from about 8 meters per second to 1 or 2 meters per second. So it will touch down very softly. Besides these measurements, we also, that just before the touchdown, we also raise the chairs of the astronauts after the deployment of the parachutes. So this can also dump many of the energy of the impact. So with all these measures, we can ensure that the touchdown is very comfortable for our astronauts.
All right. Well, let's check in with our reporter now. Zheng Yibing is at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Yibing, so what updates do you have for us there?
Well, yes, Xiaoyang, here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, everybody is counting down to the moment of the return of the Shenzhou-16 mission and the crew members. And also, according to the basic situation, we found the air and ground detachments at the Dongfeng landing site. They're in position at the Gobi Desert of the northwestern part of China's Inner Mongolia autonomous region. And the medical treatment vehicles are also in position for the readaptation of the taikonauts or Chinese astronauts, readaptation to the gravity on Earth. And here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, we can hear the command word from the operator here. They're saying Beijing copy to all working systems, not just at the landing site, but also the telemetry and remote control systems across China. And we can hear that these people that are basically working here on some commanding word from the different systems. So on right behind me on the big screen, we can see from the live streaming videos. You just hear the Beijing copy from the Chinese word and Beijing Mingbai. And on the big screen, we can hear the status of the reentry module of Shenzhou-16 and also the 3 taikonauts, the commander Jing Haipeng and the space pilot Yangzhu and also the payload specialist Haichao. Inside the reentry module, reading the instruction books and getting the final preparation for the return mission. So here at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center, BACC, we wish them a complete success. Back to you.
Thank you, Yibing, and we'll check in with you a bit later in the show. Well, I mean, China has done this so many times now. I mean, this is, it seems to be fairly routine, but really this is a very risky process, isn't it? It's fraught with lots of danger. So what particular points do you think are the most dangerous for these astronauts coming back?
Well, I think one of the most critical moments is what we call blackout time, where you have a very high velocity of the capsule, have strong friction with the atmosphere, that created plasma, and that stops the signals traveling from capsule back to Earth and the other way around. So there's what we call a very intense heating of the capsule. You know that I visited the factory that produced the capsule itself. It's in fact a big aluminium structure, but using a lot of technologies on the surface of the structure, we created a thermal controllable, we'll call it skin, that can also burn the carbons to reduce the temperature of the capsule so that it can survive the blackout process. I think that's one of the critical moments, and the other critical moment would be the deployment of the parachute.
Right.
That is a crucial process. You don't have that, you don't have a safe return of the astronauts. So these are, I think, basically 2 very important points that we have to watch out.
And that's why often the deployment of the parachute is considered a moment where everyone can breathe a sigh of relief, right? This is almost like the success of the landing.
Shenzhou spaceship operating the Earth with the first cosmic speed, about 7.8 kilometers per second. So we must reduce that speed to 0 to have a safety return. To reduce that to 0, mainly we depend on the aerodynamic forces. But with the aerodynamic forces, because the friction between the vehicle and the atmosphere, the highest temperature can reach to 2,000 degrees Celsius. So that is a very high temperature. And as Mr. Xu mentioned, we use a heating shield, which use ablative materials. You know that with the ablative material, when it is vaporized by the high temperature, and it can brings the heat away. So the temperature inside the cabin is still in room temperature. But with this measure, although we can effectively reduce the temperature of the vehicle, but the vaporized ablative material will form a plasma shield which blocks the communication. So that is very dangerous. And also, you know that without this communication, we cannot get the signals of the receivers of the beidou navigation satellite system. So we cannot predict the trajectory of the vehicle very precisely. Although this moment we can still track the vehicle based on the ground readers and also optical telescope.
We just heard a message there saying about having located the target.
It says the Kashgar ground station have captured the signals.
Kashi ground station is at the most westward station, ground station of China. So this means that the Shenzhou spaceship is already very close to the China's territory. Great, the separation conducted.
Well, we're not getting any images of that, no simulation of that, but that is the separation of the re-entry capsule and the propulsor, the service module.
Yeah.
Yes, once that separation is occurred, and also the capture of the signal from Kashgar ground station, we know that the capsule is above Pakistan, somewhere in the
Karachi.
Karachi.
Shenzhou-16号，我是北京，
So
规
it's
范分离正常。
That's
the nominal
Beijing
of the
speaking
operation.
to Shenzhou-16, saying that the separation has been normal?
You may notice that we just heard the voice of the dialogue between the commander of the Beijing Flight Control Center and the Shenzhou-16 crew. This means that still at this moment we still have the communication link between the vehicle and the ground.
Not in the blackout,
but after several minutes, when it touched the upper limit of the atmosphere, it will. Okay, the second prediction.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing right now, the second prediction of the landing location. This is from the Beijing control, the ground control staff.
So with the separation of the service module, we understand the capsule is on its own. So there's nothing, there's no return, and there's no control. Basically, not much control that can be done by the capsule itself. It's on a free-flow process. Once, well, we have just heard the ground station from Huanghe, which is also in Gansu province, have captured also signals. So that means that the capsule is coming back in high speed and high velocity.
To be able to, for the ground stations to be able to locate the space station, it means it's
just
traveled
along
a long time,
the ground track of the vehicle.
Basically, it's traveling from Africa, Pakistan, Xinjiang, and then came back to Inner Mongolia. Yes.
At this point, then, the capsule, what kind of a state is it in? It's just free falling, and then
it's already, you know, that it's already only have one module left, the re-entry capsule, and the more important task for it now is to keep its attitude. Because when touching the atmosphere, it must in the right attitude to have the heating shield facing the forward.
But how can it do that if it's completely
with very small proportion
engines
on board the re-entry capsule?
So this, so are they adjusting? Would the crew in this capsule be adjusting this right now, or they just left?
I think it's automatic.
Automatically.
It's automatic.
Actually speaking, okay, we've already seen the deployment of the. Okay,
that's the capsule.
That's the re-entry capsule.
Right? Yeah.
I think this is the infrared image.
Yeah.
So you can see a lot of heatings that they're depleted from the capsule. The bright part is the capsule itself, and there's a tail of the plasma, and
you can see the long trail is the evaporized
the heat,
the evaporized ablative materials. Which form the.
This is basically the blackout period. I think they can only track the capsule by the optical and infrared images, not by communication with the crew.
What kind of temperatures does this get to?
Above 2,000.
About 2,000. What about inside the capsule?
In room temperature.
I managed to keep it at that steady temperature the whole time back.
But there is an increase in the temperature, and also we know there's a window, and also lots of heating that comes in, and you can feel it, but you don't get burned because it's just controllable, still controllable.
But they would feel the change in temperature.
Yeah, they would feel the temperature changes.
Very bright.
It's like you're very close to an oven or a fire that you can still feel the fire, but you don't get burned. Yes, yeah.
So this blackout stage, how long does this last then normally? We're looking
a few minutes. A few minutes.
Usually the period of the blackout period is about 3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes, and the astronauts themselves, I mean, we have no connection with them obviously right now.
Only without communication, but still, as we've already seen this video image, so we can predict the trajectory by this means. And also we have radar, the ground-based radar, to tracking the spacecraft.
I mean, we've talked about this before, but there's always this perception that astronauts on their return will, lose consciousness or black out themselves. But most of the time they're completely fine on their way back, aren't they? They can manage
I'm sure that Jing Haipeng, as the first time coming back, must be very excited, looking out and communicating with his colleagues.
They can also see the flames outside their window.
Wow.
It's like in the oven, but you're inside the oven.
Well, that can't be too comfortable, but apparently it is for them if they're managing to keep it at steady room temperature. So from now that they've entered the blackout zone, from now until touching down, roughly we're looking at how many minutes?
I think after the blackout, there will be a slowdown and deployment of the parachute, and there's a complete process. It depends also on wind speed, and then we have another prediction of the landing site. So quite, I think,
within half an hour.
With less than
that, 20 minutes or even more. So, Professor, you were saying that they're traveling. They need to get the speed down from 8,000 kilometers per second
to about that's
zero.
just as Mr. Xu mentioned, the deployment of the parachutes. The speed of the re-entry capsule is about 200 meters per second, and the altitude is about 10 kilometers high.
So in terms of, to get the speed down, are we, is it a very sort of a steady, slow down, or is there a sudden slowdown
Let's say
at some
there's
point?
four ways of slowing down the capsule. First is this using the service module to what we call a brake burn, which is the burning of the engine to slowing down the capsule from 7.9 kilometers per second to a speed where it can start re-entering to the Earth.
That's a simulation we saw.
And that's a simulation we saw before the separation of the service module. And the second stage is using what we're seeing now, using the atmosphere to drag down and to slow down the capsule so that can reach a speed which is from supersonic to subsonic, so that we can start deploying the parachute. Because if you are deploying this parachute in supersonic, it will destroy the parachute and also even break down the parachute itself. So using the atmosphere to slow down is second stage, and third one is using that parachute. Fourth one is using the retro engines at the 2 meters above the Earth. We fire the engine like a pyrotechnics, and then we slow down like a cushioning the capsule down to zero.
And at each stage, when this reduction in speed is being experienced, would the astronauts themselves experience a sudden jolt and a change in speed, or is it fairly imperceptible?
That is called overload or the G-forces.
Right.
That's the peak value will be about 3.6 G. Which means that the forces you experience is about 3 to 4 times of your own mass, of your own weight. So this is very uncomfortable, but lasts for only several half a minute of the peak value. But although in this normal case they only experience the G-forces of about 3.6 times their own mass, but that they must be trained for the emergency re-entry up to 8 G. And moreover, you see that for the pilots and the commanders, they not only have to compare these G-forces, but also do the right operation under these G-forces up to 8 G.
Yes, so the human can take up to 12 G. Above that, you die. So it's the maximum that you can take by human body. So there was one return case by the Russian capsule. I was on board. There was a Korean female astronaut, and they came back 11 G. So the astronauts came back, but they survived. And once they were asking how was the return, the lady said it's very sportive.
What you mentioned is Miss Yi Sao-Yan. She's also a good friend of mine. But she mentioned that she does not feel so serious during the whole process.
But then does it leave you with would it leave the human body with any kind of upsets or any ailments afterwards, after experiencing such a high number of Gs?
That not only these G-forces, but also very intensive vibration during these processes. That's a problem. So the astronauts must be trained before their flight missions for the vibration. They will go to the test bed and lying down there and fasten their safety belt and then experience the vibration. But the G-forces can also be simulated, but not the same time with the vibration. Okay, the third prediction. So you can see the prediction is slightly different from the previous one.
What's that we're seeing there? Is that the parachute already?
I think they're ready to deploy because you can see the sky.
That is the induced parachute,
this is the
and then the deceleration parachute, and then the main parachute.
And now we're looking at an actual
image. Yes, I believe this is the main parachute. So the total area of this main parachute is 1,200 square meters.
Wow, that's
very huge.
We see a very successful deployment of the parachute.
Yeah, that seems very smooth.
Yeah. Very beautiful.
It's all happening very quickly, so we're expecting this to possibly touch down in the next 10 minutes or so, right?
After deployment of the main parachute, there will be any control of the trajectory. So the landing point will purely depend on the wind. So that's why we need more predictions, because with the forecast of the weather, we can get a precise prediction of the speed of the wind, and then we have a more precise prediction of the landing point.
So we should be able to hear from the astronauts quite soon, right? From inside the capsule.
The opening of the hatch can take some time because once you're there, it's 20 to 30 minutes before they return. They open the hatch.
Oh, that's a report from Mr. Jing Haipeng, the commander.
Oh, that was from I was wondering because now that they've exited the blackout zone,
the communication link has already re-established.
So what kind of a speed are they at now? Is it did you say 200?
They are less than that, about maybe 10 to 20 meters per second, I believe.
So this should be quite a fairly comfortable right now for the astronauts.
You know that the altitude of the Jiuquan satellite launch center is about 1,000 meters high above the sea level. At this moment, still the altitude of the vehicle is several kilometers above that. So the speed is relatively high, and it will de-accelerate continuously. And just before the landing, it will be about 6 to 8 meters per second.
What does that feel like for, if you put it into kind of very layman terms?
Let's say a skydiver. If you jump off the plane, it's like a separation of the service module. And then you have a free fall, which is like a blackout.
Right.
And then there is the deployment of this parachute. It's similar to this whole process. Then you're landing back to Earth. It's from very high speed down to the parachute. Then you open and you're slowing down and drifting down. It's like riding a balloon.
You can see Shenzhou-16 crew is watching the live coverage inside the space station.
So they went up there last week.
They are watching the live
Tuesday,
coverage of China Central Television.
That's right.
On the 26th.
On the 26th.
6公里高。
So they spent only really 5 days
already
in space
below
with each
6
other.
kilometers high. And the next step, they will release all the propellants inside the tanks of the re-entry capsule. You know that we use hydrogen as the propellant for the control of the re-entry capsule. It is called a monopropulsion system. Because the hydrogen is toxic, so we must release all the hydrogen out to ensure the safety.
When they're picking the return date, and Professor Yang, you were telling me earlier about when we were talking about why this mission was 5 months as opposed to 6. I mean, obviously the weather, the conditions are all very important, but picking the exact day for return, what are some of the factors that they have to think about this, and perhaps the natural factors?
You may notice each time we have this live coverage in a different time. This is because you know that a basic requirement is that the re-entry can only conduct when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane of the Shenzhou-16.
So the closest distance.
So we don't have other choices. We just can only conduct at this moment.
So once the landing date, once that moment is determined, there's just really no adjustments to the landing date.
And
the window is not very flexible.
The answer of your question is that you know that we hope that we can conduct a faster return, only for several hours, because it will be very more convenient for our astronaut.
Right.
So the position when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane, across the orbital plane, is also very important. So it must in a certain position in its orbit. So not every day we have this condition. So the day also should be carefully chosen.
Let's say they landed. Let's say they picked. So today obviously would have been the closest distance, but let's say it was delayed till tomorrow. How much longer would that journey be potentially coming back?
As I mentioned, that depends on the position in orbit, where it is in the orbit when the landing site passing across the orbital plane of the Shenzhou spaceship. And for different day, it's different.
But if you have enough fuel on board, you can adjust your orbit. That can still make you back to Earth, but it's a different process.
But it would be a much lengthier process, would it?
But theoretically speaking, they have a window to go back every day.
No, there is every day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, weather conditions. Then it doesn't matter if it's a little foggy or a little hazy, but what sort of conditions would be very dangerous then?
Windy.
That will be influence the ground teams. Maybe that will be more impact to the ground teams. But for the astronauts, there is no essential difference.
So rain
but
or
the
storms,
wind is a very important factor. As you can see, the whole vehicle together with the parachute is waving. So that is the influence of the wind. Also influence the actual coordinate of the landing point.
So it makes it a little bit more unpredictable in that sense.
And at this moment, we should monitor the whole. That's a release. That's a release of the propellant You can see the smoke is the released vaporized propellant inside the tanks of the propulsion system.
How much propellant would be left in the capsule at this point before it released it?
Much little than the those in the propulsion module, because we only need to change the attitude of the reentry capsule with this propulsion, very small monopropulsion system. And also there will be jettisoning of the main heating chute,
返回舱
heating
即
shield.
将着陆东风着陆场预定位置。
I
We're
believe
hearing
also
Beijing ground
at
control,
this
they're
moment
speaking
or
to
later
Shenzhou-16.
there will be a raising of the chairs.
So we just heard a message there from the ground control to Shenzhou-16 saying they're preparing to touch down.
This is already a relative relaxed moment for the astronauts.
One thing to watch out at this moment is whether the capsules are landing at the vertical position or horizontal, because then the opening is going to be on top or on the side. So that also, because it's like, the parachute is on top of the capsule.
Yeah.
And once it's coming down, sometimes it's tipped over. Sometimes it's landed upright.
But at some point they have to shed the parachute as well, don't they? As soon as it touches down,
The cutting the parachute, this operation is charged by Mr. Yangzhu, which is called 02. This is always done by 02, because that there is a button just close to him.
Okay.
So as Mr. Xu mentioned, the most optimized one happened during the Shenzhou-16 mission and the Shenzhou-13 mission. Mr. Jing Haipeng and Ms. Wang Yaping conduct this very perfectly. So they cut the parachute at the right moment, so make it possible for the landing, the touchdown vertically. And so that.
So does that mean that it should be severed before they actually touch down,
Just,
or is it at
yes.
the moment? of
The
touching
moment
Yeah.
cutting
Moment.
down is very
Moment of
important.
touching down.
So only in these two missions we achieved a vertical touchdown.
and
you know
that's
that
the most
a
ideal.
vertical touchdown will be more convenient for the astronauts.
Because astronauts are sitting
Upright,
upright.
yeah.
And if you're landing on the side, it's going to be leaning forward.
Right.
Or either landing on,
Or on their side,
On the
yeah.
side, yes.
And obviously it wouldn't be ideal if they landed with the hatchet sort of pointing down, but is that
Then
possible?
it's never happened, but it's going to be
possible as well.
a big rescue team.
But in most cases, as Mr. Xu mentioned, in most cases they will touch down in a horizontal attitude, because the reason is because that during the re-entry we need some control, and the principle is that the center of mass of the re-entry capsule have some deviation from the symmetrical axis of the vehicle. So usually it will line down.
Right. So did you say it's happened twice for China's
yeah, only
manned
twice.
mission? Only twice. The Shenzhou, which ones were
Because
they?
the button,
13
Shenzhou
and 6.
6 and the Shenzhou 13.
And
Because-
one thing to look out at this moment is the firing of the ritual engine. That is just 2 meters above the Earth. So you'll see a big plum of smoke that coming down from the bottom of the capsule. That is normal because it's the firing of the ritual engine.
Okay. So that capsule, we can see that it is completely charred on the outside.
Yeah, it's
That's
on the
from
one
the-
side it has to be very charged, yes.
On just the one side?
Yeah, because it's coming back in an angle. So one side has more frictions than the other.
And that this is a main parachute. In fact, we also have another backup parachute.
Right.
If anything wrong happens to the main parachute, we can use the backup parachute to ensure the safety landing of our astronauts.
But that's never happened before.
It never happened before.
Surviving the landings.
We hope that never happened.
No. Are we looking at the more charred side of the capsule right now? Looks very.
Yes, the picture is getting very clear, so
Yeah,
it means very close
right.
to the ground.
Should be expecting it to touch down in
Couple of
five,
minutes,
6
yes.
minutes. Yeah,
Yeah.
5 minutes maybe.
Even less than that, I think.
So they must be very excited right now coming home. What would their state be right now? I mean, they have passed some of the most difficult.
I think they're very relaxed at this moment
Yeah.
because they know they're safe now. It's already passing through the most dark moment.
They can put the manuals down as well now at this point, right? Or do they still have to be
they
looking
have
at this?
a menu to open the hatch. Before that, there's a couple of operations.
But as I mentioned, Mr. Zhu Yangzhu will be in charge of cutting the
Releasing
parachute.
parachute.
So this is an important moment for him.
So he can't relax yet.
Yeah.
Like Professor Yang mentioned, there's a gamma ray altimeter, so that is very radioactive. So the rescue team has to avoid the bottom side of the capsule to avoid radiation contaminations.
They have a lead cover. They have a lead cover to block the radiation.
What sort of distance would they be from Earth right now?
I think it's a few hundred meters. I think even
a few hundred meters only.
Yeah.
A few hundred meters
So
only, they'll be dropping down.
We can see this video taken from the camera mounted on the
helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay,
already
so
at
it's
the
already very
helicopter
close to-
altitude.
Right,
yes.
right. So the rescue routine would be the helicopter gets there first, spots it, locates it, and then the ground teams
because
then
it's
come.
faster than the ground vehicles.
Right.
At this moment, I believe that the chairs of the three astronauts have already been raised to the right position
and that
to
cushions their
dump the
landing.
energy of impact.
I mean, coming back from them, it's still going to be a long time before they're able to get back to their normal lives, right? I mean, we're talking about a few months of recovery.
They need some adjustment. Yes.
Very long procedure for recovery.
You see that the picture that we've seen a couple of days ago, the two crews met, and Jing Haipeng has very swollen face because that happens when you're exposed to extensively microgravity environment. Your body fluid, get confused whether it's going to flow, and you stay extensively longer in outer space. You lose a lot of bone mass, and your cardiovascular system changes. And your blood flow and water flow in your body changes also. Your immune system sometimes changes. So it takes longer to, at least a couple of months to get back to to get used to the gravity. It's like a slowing process. One of the astronauts from US, he said to me that he went to a foot massage after 800 days, 300 days in outer space. They say he has the most soft foot they have seen before. They don't use
the false prediction.
48秒，多点纬度，北纬41度，38分35秒。
Some very precise predictions there for the fourth. The fourth would be the final landing point.
Exactly.
And then the crews are, the vehicles, the helicopter are rushing to the site and ready to start search and rescue.
And the wind speed is also considered, the influence of the wind speed.
Because that might carry them off to somewhere else. How big of a area would this fourth prediction be for the landing? Oh, there they are.
It's going to be a ritual firing. Yeah, that's the
okay.
ritual
We can
firing.
see the work of the rocket's motors.
Yeah, the heat there would be the fire.
Then there's a cutting of the parachute.
So what do you think? Will it be vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
So we will see the result very
Let's bet on it. There's still some wind. You can see the parachute is drifting on the side, and also the smoke.
So
yeah, the smoke
I believe it's already successfully cut down.
东风到北京请讲。
They are home.
北京第4次落点预报已发出，后续由东风
See the helicopter going there and the ground
搜
teams
救
are
维修
Ground
工
team
作。
also has arrived.
东风明白。
Are you able to see the ground teams in this image? I'm having trouble spotting it.
雄鹰、猛士按计划组织搜救行动。雄鹰。
Xuying, that's the
helicopter
team,
team,
right? That's
yes.
the name of it.
It belongs to the ground team.
The
And
Eagle
this
team.
is probably from the helicopter camera that we're seeing right now, right? I think it looks like the helicopter is landing. We're seeing.
Yeah, this is the helicopter image of from the top. We still don't have an image of the capsule itself yet.
No, not close up.
雄鹰已在现场降落，返回舱曾倾倒在海，主伞已脱落，
It's on site.
着陆地形为硬戈壁，报告完毕。
It's
You
lying
see
down.
It's lying down.
It's taking a rest.
So we can really see the vertical landing.
东风猛士报告。
So it has to be a very, very precise moment when
With
they
even no
when they
wind
detach
at all,
it.
I think maybe.
So I mean, the wind might also blow the capsule over, or is it just the drag from the parachute?
It's a little bit drag, but also if you see that the attaching point of the parachute is also on, make the capsule a little bit sideways.
Right.
It's not on really top of it.
And I mean, the parachute, it's also really critical that they do sever it straight away, right? Otherwise, that could cause the capsule.
If you haven't cut off the parachute, it will drag the re-entry capsule because of the wind. We can still remember during the during the Shenzhou-16 mission, because the parachute has not been cut down, so it dragged the vehicle for almost 100 meters.
Oh wow! You can see the crew is reaching the capsule there. So they have to be very careful, right, Mr. Xu? You were saying to avoid the bottom side.
Yeah, well, they have procedures that they have to follow. That which there are a number of crews, medical crews and hatch open crews, the technical supporting teams. All of these has to follow a procedure. Some people have to set up the parameter,
right.
Where it is forbidden, where it is to be, inviting different crews to come, approach and close to the capsule itself.
And the capsule, the outside of the capsule, there's also the potential of toxic gases and other
as I mentioned,
elements,
we've
right?
already released all the propellants inside the tanks. So maybe there is a small amount
but
of
not
that,
enough to cause any.
not a big threat.
So they won't need to have to.
But as Mr. Xu mentioned, the radiation comes from the gamma ray altimeter will be a big matter. So you may notice that every time during the recovery, before we block the radiation with the lead cover, usually the ground team does not go to the not facing the bottom of the vehicle directly.
Right. But the sides of the vehicle is okay.
Yeah.
You see more crews approaching the capsule right now.
From the hatch side.
It's a good side. It's very. Is that the smoke, presumably,
Hazy.
that
I
we're
think
seeing?
probably it's from the helicopters or others.
It looks like almost 10 people that are gathering around the capsule.
Just several weeks before return, the Shenzhou-16 crew just enhanced their physical exercise every day.
Yeah, what sort of exercises would that involve?
Such as the treadmill to run inside station, and also the space bicycle and other exercise measures to strengthen their muscles and to readapt with the gravity.
Is that a very different sort of set of exercise from what they would routinely do in the space station?
It's different because you know that because you know that they stay there for 5 months. During the ordinary cases, they don't have a certain schedule. But as I mentioned, just several weeks before their return, they will pay more time on this exercise.
Because 5 months, they don't have to use their muscle. I mean, everything, they're floating. They're floating, sleeping, they're floating, working, they're floating, everything. So their muscle is substantially lost. If you don't use the muscle for 6 weeks, you lose your muscles and bones.
So these astronauts, they'd all experience a lot of weight loss, would they, upon coming back? Is that?
They basically stretch a little bit. I mean, they grow higher because there's
Yes.
Oh,
but they will go back to their normal height.
That's a good benefit of of space journey, no?
You know that during the interview, Mr. Judge Gang, the commander of the Shenzhou-16 crew, mentioned that you will feel uncomfortable even with the softest bed. Because with the influence of gravity, it's not so comfortable like sleep in outer space.
Sleeping in microgravity environment is the most comfortable way of sleeping. You're basically floating. There's no touching part from anywhere.
That sounds interesting. Maybe one day that can be.
But you have to just attach yourself to certain panels or boards or your own cabins. Otherwise, you're floating around. You could be bumping.
We can see the ground staff is already near the hatch. I believe they are trying to open the hatch.
So we've got medical teams also standing by. So with the last landing that we saw, there were medical vans, but one for each of the astronauts.
Exactly. You see that the different ground staff wear different clothes in different colors.
Red, blue, and black.
So some belongs to the astronaut system, in charge of the medical issues and to take care of the astronauts.
Would that be the ones in blue and white?
Yes. Possibly, and some wear the other colors. Some belongs to the spaceship system. The spaceship system will be in charge of the, for instance, as we discussed, to manage the re-entry capsule, to block the radiation and other operations.
But it's good weather. I mean, temperature-wise and everything. So they are going to prepare 3 chairs for the 3 astronauts, ready at the gate of the hatch, and then they will. I mean, the astronaut has to. More or less came out by their own, but after 5 months of exposing to microgravity environment, they're very weak.
Right.
So they have to be quickly moved to the chair, and they don't have to move, make a major movement. I think at this moment, the astronauts in the capsule feel their weight now back to Earth. Everything is very heavy.
They get lifted out, but then they can walk. Right?
They can, but
they
are
stand, it's just difficult.
Because their bone mass has lost substantially in outer space. So the bones and muscles cannot, support very flexible movement at this moment.
So from now, from after they leave the capsule, they'll be lifted and then taken to the little medical vans waiting for them. And then at what point? Usually, how long would it be before they're able to walk by themselves again, or when it's considered safe for them to walk by themselves?
Usually after several weeks, after
weeks.
readaptation to the gravity.
So the next few weeks they'll
at
be
this moment,
bedbound.
At this moment, usually in most cases, they'll lying down in bed to ensure that, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the possible breaking of their bones.
So I have a question then. If they are bedbound for the next few weeks, how then do they regain muscle strength?
Not exactly bedbound all the time. They have to go through a rehabilitation process. Like once you had an operation, you have to recover, and you have to go do exercise.
And enhance
slow
their tolerance to stand up.
Take medicines.
So they'll be opening the hatch, and we should be seeing the order of their exit. It'll be the commander first.
And
so
at this moment, the medical team will help the astronauts to readapt the gravity environment.
I think the people in blue and white trousers could be from the China Aerospace Science Technology Corporation. They're the manufacturer of the capsule, and they have a technical supporting team to operate and open the hatch. And they know which screw to unwise and which way to touch.
You may compare of the person with the size of the re-entry capsule. It's really small for three persons inside, and even they are wearing IVA spacesuits.
If you just look at there's 3 or 4 of them gathered at the hatch of the capsule already. They're kind of blocking half of it, so very little space. So what?
You can still see that nobody on the bottom side of the capsule. So there's still, as Professor Yang mentioned, there's somebody who's going to use a radioactive blocking cap to cover the radiations.
We haven't seen anyone do that just yet.
I think the priority at this moment is to rescue of the astronauts.
Well, someone just went around the back of the capsule there.
I believe.
So, I mean, with such a small space, I mean, they have, so the hatch is opening now. And they're bringing out Commander.
Not only our 3 heroes, but also the valuable samples returned from space.
Exactly, that's exactly what I was going to ask. It's such a small space, but they have to bring some, food and water for themselves, presumably some of their own personal belongings.
Yeah,
and
not much food and water because they're coming back in only 11 hours. So
that's true, but they have to make provisions in case, though, right? If they're somewhere hostile.
Very compact, survival kits, and also even including a raft and many other facilities, and the experiments results and samples back from outer space.
So it really isn't much space at all. What sort of samples do you think they'll be bringing back? What do you hope they'll be bringing back?
That for the space biology and the space medicine, they have a lot of samples back to the Earth. Moreover, this time, that we also have all the material making experiments on board the Tiangong space station, including the the rack without contact to the material, just use laser to heating up the material to about 3,000 Celsius degrees. And we can with the gravity environment, we can make all kind of very perfect sphere in sphere shapes the materials. And also we have other material making, including the crystal of proteins, and also the material made in a very high temperature. So this kind of study has already been conducted since Shenzhou-16 and Shenzhou-14 mission. So this time we can continuously see this kind of research. Moreover, you know that in some cases their own body of the 3 astronauts are also being studied for space medicine purposes. For instance, some blood samples and other samples.
So it's taken quite a while for them to bring the astronauts out, right, since they opened the hatch. Is that because they're also doing some preliminary medical checkups inside the capsule at this stage? I mean, it's been minutes.
At this moment, the ground team, especially the medical team, medical care from the astronaut system, will checking the right status of our 3 astronauts.
I mean,
their health conditions are being monitored all the time. I mean, even heart rate and blood pressures and everything. So they can receive all the data even out of the blackout, and they have the parameters and the astronaut safeties. So they're currently basically working on the hatch itself because you can see the side of the black burn, the charted part, and also the part that has not been burned so extensively. So the metal has been exposed to high temperatures. And there's some tight points and tight structures that needs to be physically opened for the hatch. It's not so easy because it was originally attached to the orbital module.
Will the capsule now still be hot to the touch, or will it have lost all the temperature?
I think it's basically more or less loss of all the temperatures because it has been exposed to atmosphere underneath the parachute for about more than 10 minutes. So it's also the friction on the carbon is not creating heat, only on metal, so it didn't capped all the heat on the capsule itself.
So it's safe for the
one
crew
important step to make the result, as Mr. Xu mentioned, is the jettisoning of the heating shield after the deployment of the parachute. That after the deployment of the parachute, we just jettison the heating shield because the temperature is too high. More important is to expose the gamma ray altimeter and the 4 retro rocket to the outer environment to make it possible to deaccelerate the vehicle to the safety landing touchdown speed.
You see on the left side is the opening of the one small hatch, which is they used to pack the parachute inside. So you can see that the hatch has been opened and has been used on the left side, left bottom side. Yes.
That is the chamber for the main parachute.
I mean, it will take them a few months to rehabilitate, to recover, and then is it likely that these astronauts will go straight back into training and get ready for the next one?
We may notice that Mr. just during the handover, from between the Shenzhou-17 crew and the 16 crew, Mr. Tang Hongbo has the shortest interview between 2 flight missions.
That's right, and he's the first one to return as well.
Yes,
right?
exactly. He's the first one to return our Tiangong space station. But you know that based on the standard of the other countries, Mr. Jing Haipeng of this mission.
So we're hearing from the search crew right now, the helicopter crew.
Great.
Yeah, they've just announced there that the astronauts are in good health condition, physical condition. That's from the search crew there. So how long was the interval for Mr. Tang going up again?
About 2 years. He also makes this record.
2 years, that's pretty short.
Pretty short for 2 flight missions. You know that.
So he was the first one into the space station, right? And then now he's returned
He's
again.
first crew. And you know that Mr. Jing Haipeng, based on the standards of other countries, he is one to have entered 3 space stations: Tiangong 1, Tiangong 2, and this Tiangong space station. Because although we categorize our Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2 as space laboratories, but in other countries they also categorize that also as very small space stations.
Something else interesting as well. So when the Shenzhou-17 successfully launched, the space program already had the Shenzhou-18 ready to go, right?
Yeah.
So why is that? Why is it so fast and without
actually
any break?
speaking, the combination of the Shenzhou-18 spaceship together with the Long March 2F Y-18 rocket, the combination is act as the emergency rescue standing by combination of rocket and the Shenzhou spaceship. If anything wrong happens, because you know that the Shenzhou-17 crew stayed in orbit for half a year, so anything can happen during this half a year duration. So if anything wrong happens, if the Shenzhou-17 spaceship is not feasible for the safety return of the crew, so the Shenzhou-18 will be launched.
I see. So it's all backup basically.
So it's what we call redundancy. It's for life of people. You have people on board the station. You have a hiccup of the 17th, and you can quickly replace that with 18. So
Right.
still the crew can come back.
And is that pretty standard practice?
Yes,
internationally?
it's normal practice.
Because there has been scenarios before where I read that there had been a problem up at the at a different space station, and the ground team, they weren't prepared like they are now. So it took them a year before the next crew was able to get up there.
Internationally, it's not the practice. It's only the Chinese practice. Yeah.
They're just announcing the precise landing spot right now of the capsule, the Shenzhou-16 crew.
The real coordinate, the final coordinate of the landing point is announced now.
You can see that all the calculation has been collected, so the scientific community of the rocket designers can recalculate, and then this is one experience gain again after 17 landings, so that we can know in the future where the capsule might land in a precise location.
Exactly. This is a very good reference for the future missions.
Absolutely, and to me it just sounds like a bunch of numbers, but of course for the scientists this is all very important data, isn't it?
To optimize the re-entry procedure in the future. So this is a very good reference and very helpful for our researchers
and to pinpoint a more precise location next time, factoring in wind speed, all this.
Yeah, this you can see from this mission that the crew came very quickly.
Yeah, that was very quick. Yeah,
within minutes. Yeah. So
but I mean that's pretty standard now, isn't it, for the crew to reach the space capsule? We should be expecting to see the captain
there is no
exception.
That every time we can take the video of the moment of touchdown with the smoke of the retro rockets.
What's the difference from the first manned return? The first capsule that returned from this one.
Well, Mr. Yang Liwei introduced the moment that that during the re-entry of Mr. Yang Liwei in October the 16th, 2003, he mentioned that because we don't have experience before, so it's already lost of control because everybody is so excited. Although we have isolation area, but everybody rushed inside and even raised Mr. Yang Liwei up. So, because that this is the first time that we Chinese fulfill the millennium dream to go to outer space, so everybody have great emotion on very, very exciting on that.
Yeah, the level of
we can understand that.
Is so different, exactly. I mean, now it's very routine. We're happy and excited that they're back, but it's just expected that it will go well, right?
Yeah, I believe that the next time we have this moment will be the return of our astronauts from the moon.
That would definitely be
the only way stayed only
21 hours.
21 hours in orbit. So there's no major mass loss of muscles and bones, no major changes in the body. And also, we had 5 missions before the Shenzhou, the Yang Liwei mission, because those were experimental missions that was conducted even before we sent a man to space. So we have to be very reliable on the system itself. The capsule has not changed, as you mentioned, for the past 2 decades. But we're designing a new generation crew capsule that enables us to put 7 people on board at the same time.
So the new generation.
Yeah, new generation has been tested and ready to be used in the future with the new generation launch vehicle.
7 people, that number of people, is that designed for a reason? I mean, 3 is the basic that's needed, right?
This is very helpful for our future study. You know that for any ascending or launch or the return, we require at least 2 of the astronauts has a capability to piloting the ship.
Right.
So they must be trained for this and use a lot of time. With 7 crew members, which means that we can have more scientists and engineers only dedicated to scientific research. That will be more efficient for us to clarify any scientific research on board Tiangong space station.
So 7 is just at the moment the maximum that it's possible.
At this moment, and also for interplanetary missions, also we can have more crews on board, and also, for example, we have ambitions to land on the surface of the moon in the coming decade. So that also can be useful for either moon maneuver in the low Earth orbit and also for deep space exploration.
The more the merrier.
Yes.
Especially if they're going on such long journeys.
Exactly.
Mr. Yang Liwei has already mentioned during the interview that the future lunar human missions, the astronauts must already have experience to stay in our Tiangong space station first. So this is a very important criteria for our training of astronauts. So I believe that why is the reason we choose so many, such a young crew for the Shenzhou-17 mission. You know, that's the total number only 34 and 35 years old. So because they are so young, so in the future they are experienced and become veterans after this Shenzhou-17 mission. So in the future, it is also possible for them to be chosen for the lunar missions.
We're going to hear from the Shenzhou-16 crew now.
The astronauts will report by themselves.
That's right. So let's see. We'll hear from them any minute.
I think hatch has been opened.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been seeing the search crew, the rescue crew, kind of go in.
Yeah.
You can see that the Jiuqian satellite launch center is the sky is very clear in a very beautiful blue color.
Than earlier. I mean, 20 years, right? 20 years since the first...
20 years anniversary of the first manned mission.
And so much has changed. And if you look at just the last few landings that I've seen, it's all so controlled. You know, every stage is so controlled and almost so predictable as well.
Yeah. We have already formed a very standard routine. This.
I mean, Yang Liwei, when he first went up there, he was saying on the way there, the space capsule was just vibrating, shaking, you know, incredibly, right? That was such
especially during the launch.
Yeah.
Because we don't have much experience at that moment. So after Mr. Yang Liwei's first mission, we just optimized the launch process, especially control of the control system to avoid the vibration.
Because he said it was terrifying. It was incredibly uncomfortable for him.
He almost, you know, that Mr. Yang Liwei mentioned later that he almost thought he will lose his life during that moment.
And probably not just him, the entire ground control, everybody is just holding their breath.
Because of the launch vehicle is designed in such a way it accelerates, also provides gravity, you know, like 3 or 4 G-forces. And then there's a movement of the rocket on a vertical movement, what we call a pogo. It's like the jog that you mentioned, that it's going up and down, up and down. So that is, you know, Professor Yang mentioned the vibration. It's not, you know, different direction, but also up and down. So that makes very uncomfortable for the astronauts.
So then to compare that 20 years ago to what these astronauts are experiencing now on their way up, it's a huge difference.
We can simulate the vibration and we can simulate the G-forces, but we cannot simulate it simultaneously on the ground. So that's the problem.
Oh, okay. So in training,
that is the reason why Mr. Yang Liwei feels so uncomfortable during that moment.
And is that still not simulatable now? Can they do that now?
It cannot, because it's too difficult for the ground facilities.
So when these astronauts train and prepare for this, they just go through the 2 motions separately and try to imagine what it's like together.
But honestly speaking, we can simulate more intensive G-forces up to 8 G. To dealing with the abnormal cases.
So not only are we more technologically advanced, but these astronauts themselves are far more prepared now to go up to space than before, mentally and physically. Right?
So maybe the normal procedure is not so challenging, not so uncomfortable for the astronaut, but the training of the emergency cases is very tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's massive advancements in just the last 20 years. And next stage, the moon.
Yep. We heard
I
from the
think that's-
astronauts.
They're saying they feel well. We just had a message there from the astronauts
北京明白。
inside saying that we've safely landed, we feel
祝
well.
贺
See you in
神舟
Beijing.
16号，你们辛苦了，向你们致以崇高的敬意。我们在北京迎接你们凯旋。
And there's the ground staff congratulating them on their return and
My
sending
friend,
their
Commander
regards
Jing
and
Haipeng,
respect.
just report his status with his, the Shanxi accent.
Couldn't really hear it.
And now the unbuckling of the safety belt of the commander-in-chief.
Yeah. That since the the Shenzhou-16 mission, because that Mr. Jing Haipeng comes from Shanxi province, and we prepared more vinegar for him.
Of course, their first meal, they must be really looking forward to this. But since their bodies are readjusting to Earth
Gravity.
and the gravity environment, does that mean that the first things that they eat, should there be more care put into what they eat, or is it okay? Can they just eat anything
It's
they
also
like?
carefully chosen
Yeah.
for their first meal.
So they can't be picking spicy Sichuan hot pot or anything
No,
like that
but-
for their
but
first
That
meal.
depends.
But whatever they eat there it's going to be tasting very good, because space food is
Bland.
very challenging because it's experience everyone have. Once you're flying on board a plane, the food on the plane tastes differently compared with the food on Earth. So they're coming back for some earthly.
Yeah, because the taste buds are much more dulled, right, up
Yep.
in space.
But you know that Mr. Ye Guangfu of the Shenzhou-16 mission, he comes from Sichuan province. I believe that it's okay for him to have any spicy food.
So we're not too worried about their digestive systems, only their physical.
Yeah, because
muscles.
the body flow is upside down. That your taste bud is different. Even
Right.
in outer space, you taste things differently.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Even the same thing.
Because the redistribution of your blood in your body, so your tongues will be less sensitive compared with that on the ground.
Because all the food that they have up at the space station that's brought by all these cargo ships, they're all just pre-prepared. You just heat them up and they're ready to eat, right? All the
Yeah, and
food.
also
So they are
like a
fond of
paste.
more salty food.
Pastes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in
Sounds
microgravity
delicious.
environment, you don't have crumbles and things you can flow around and damage the facility. It has to be like either holdable or squeezable. Something it cannot go out of control.
So what sort of foods then are we talking about? I'm finding it hard to imagine paste
Frozen,
as a meal.
quick frozen things and things like you put in like a toothpaste, but it squeeze out. But you do have things like pancakes and apples because they don't.
Oh, they can eat fresh fruit.
They
They
do
have apples.
Okay.
And also some grisen.
Otherwise, paste for 5 months, 6 months, that could be enough to deter certain people.
The Tianzhou-16 cargo spacecraft brought 70 kilograms of fresh
Paste.
fruit,
That's good.
fresh fruit to them.
But what about fresh vegetables? Is that something that they also have access to?
They can plant these vegetables now.
Well, if you're just tuning in, which I'm sure you're not, because this has been a very exciting journey back, the Shenzhou-16 re-entry capsule has touched down at the Dongfeng landing site in China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region. And the 3 taikonauts are ready to exit the capsule. We've been waiting for them to come out for the last few minutes, and that marks the completion of their 5-month mission. And the medical examination shows that the 3 taikonauts are all in good health, and we heard the reports from the commander himself earlier, saying that they are well and they're waiting to see everyone back in Beijing. So this mission, to recap, was launched on May 30th, 2023. And we have Commander Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu and Haichao. And they went to China's Tiangong space station, this stage, for 154 days in orbit. That's about 5 months. And during this time, they conducted multiple key tasks, including large-scale in-orbit tests and experiments. And they also carried out some EVAs, so extravehicular activities, and conducted space station maintenance. And any minute now, we should be seeing these astronauts leave the capsule that they've been on for now more than 12 hours. They left at 8:37 p.m. Beijing time, so almost exactly 12 hours ago. a long journey home?
You know that the inside volume of the Shenzhou spaceship, as we already seen, is very, very narrow. The total volume of the sum of the volume of the re-entry capsule and the orbital module is only 7 cubic meters. Very small volume.
I mean, you can really see it when you look at the image now, compare the humans.
To make our astronauts more comfortable, so we just greatly shortened the whole process of return to about 2 days to only several hours today.
What's the record return time? Do you know? And this one was just under 12 hours.
This one is about 6 to 8 hours. It is an ordinary case.
6 to 8 hours, and they detached. They separated at 8:37.
Just from the separation to the station to the landing, maybe longer. But you know that this also depends on what I mentioned, the position or orbit of the Tiangong space station comparing with the relative position to the landing site. So you know that it will be different for each day. So if we return tomorrow, it will be a different interval. That depends on the position in orbit. And also, you know that.
But each time the position is chosen for its closest distance.
Exactly, because you know that we don't have other choices. Only when the landing site is passing through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station, with only this moment we can conduct the return procedure. Or we will land in a different place, at least 2,000 kilometers from it.
What's China's capability now in terms of this journey back? I mean, what's the kind of longest journey that it can make in terms of carrying the fuel and all the supplies?
Actually speaking, for unmanned missions, the longest return is from the moon. During the Chang'e 5 mission, we returned just from 380,000 kilometers away. That is an unmanned one. For these Tiangong missions, you know that before our launch of the Tiangong 2 space laboratory, usually we conduct the space missions at the altitude of about 343 kilometers high. And with the Tiangong 2 missions, since that moment in 2016, we just raised the altitude to 393 kilometers high. So usually the Tiangong space station orbiting the Earth can up to about 450 kilometers high. That depends on which phase it is in, because you know that it uses its propulsion system, including its electric propulsion system, to keep its altitude every day. So this time we return from the, as Mr. Xu mentioned, maybe from the altitude about 390 kilometers.
97.
And in the future, you know that as we've already discussed, for the lunar missions, we must return from the moon. And when the spacecraft is close to the Earth, the speed can reach about 11 kilometers per second, close to the second cosmic velocity. So that will be a very great challenge to conduct the protection from the high temperature. That will be more challenging compared with the return from the low Earth orbit, about several hundred kilometers high.
So the temperature would be even higher than
even
what
higher.
The burn
And we use the atmosphere to drag it, you know, like a bouncing on the atmosphere, and then
skid re-entry.
Skid re-entry.
Yes,
it bounces once on the atmosphere before landing, and then come back again. So it's slowing down with the air of the Earth.
And how would that experience differ then for the astronauts?
Well, we have never done that before, because the astronauts, so far we have flown only 400 kilometers above the Earth. Longest duration, 6 months. And the plan is to put, you know, the humanity has landed on the surface of the moon, which is 380,000 kilometers away.
Massive difference.
Yeah, and also we are planning to do that by end of this decade, so to send astronauts there and then came back safely. That's going to be the experiencing of the bouncing of the astronauts, because that has been conducted by the sample return mission of Chang'e 5, which is using the capsule and bouncing on the Earth's surface, and then came back in a lower velocity.
What sort of time frame do you expect that will be then, this return?
2030. We just according to the formal announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, we will conduct our first human landing to the moon before 2030. Moreover, another important fact just announced by the China Manned Space Agency by Mr. Lin Xiqiang, the Deputy Chief Director of China Manned Space Agency, we formally invite the foreign astronauts to attend our human missions to the moon. So we can see in the future, the Chinese astronauts together with the foreign astronauts walk on the moon together. You see that the human landing, the crewed lander of our future lunar missions, we can have 2 crew members to land on the moon. The other stay in the orbit with the new generation manned spaceship. So with the 2 astronauts walk on the moon, one can be from China and the other from the other country. So that's very, hopefully we can see that scene in the future.
But incidentally, there's an international initiative called Artemis, which is led by US NASA. Was also participated by more than 20 countries plus. That is the idea is to build what we call a space gateway, which is a international space station on the lunar velocity, size lunar orbit. So that is going to be human-attended lunar orbiting and landing. Also, they have set a goal of boots on the moon by 2024 or 2025. So that is also something going on at the same time as with the Chinese ambition.
How long would the journey to the moon take for manned?
There's a direct trajectory, but basically a week.
A week
Yeah. 3 days to go outbound and 3 days to go inbound. So we need to stay in the lunar transfer orbit for 3 days, and then maybe conduct 1 day to orbiting the moon and land on the moon, and then go back for another 3 days. So that is a very typical 7 to 8 days for a single trip to the moon. But if you, for instance, during the Apollo 17 mission, because the astronauts stay on the moon surface for about 3 days, so they stay longer, about maybe 9 to 10 days for the whole mission.
That seems that seems unimaginable to me. I mean, then these astronauts coming home in just 12 hours. Well, it's since the separation compared to 3 days.
Yeah, especially that stay in so small volume for so many days.
But of course, then a journey to the moon, it would be a very different kind of rocket and capsule system. Right?
That's only with the moon mission, the astronaut can see the shape of the Earth is a sphere. That's, as we already discussed, either our Tiangong spaceship, either those spacecraft from other countries orbiting in the low Earth orbit, they cannot see the Earth as a sphere. They can only see that the horizon is a curvature, because that the diameter of the Earth is more than 12,000 kilometers. So only with an altitude of several hundred kilometers, you cannot see the sphere.
You can still say that the Earth is flat, but it's not that.
Yeah. And that it's really beautiful from the eyes of the Apollo astronaut. You can see the blue bubble. The Earth looks like a blue bubble. Really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen that from our lunar missions, taking pictures back to Earth.
I've seen these pictures.
Yeah.
We're talking about pictures, and the Shenzhou-16 had these pictures of the space station, right? So they separated, and that's what they were doing before they started on the journey back, right? Taking photos of the space station.
Yeah. With a high definition camera. So I believe several days later, maybe we can see the formal release of this very beautiful video from China Manned Space Agency.
And how challenging would that task have been to take those photos? Because I think they were flying. Were they flying around the space station?
Yeah, just with the help of the propulsion system on the, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the service module or the propulsion module. So we can have a maneuver just circling around our Tiangong space station. We do have the videos and images of the whole Tiangong station, but that from the previous missions, we just either the Tianzhou spacecraft or the Shenzhou spacecraft approach and leave the station in a certain routine, in a certain path. So that they do not have a chance to make the video in all directions. So this time we just, with a handheld high definition camera, we take the video of the whole station from different directions. So that must be a very, very, I believe, very, very exciting moment for all of us.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's also another first for China.
And this is taking a bit of time for them to,
I mean, usually I think they come out a lot faster than this. But we heard back from the astronauts earlier, and they said that they are safe, physically well. Yeah. What sort of complications do you think there could be?
Could be, like I said, the unbuckling of the safety belt. I think probably the opening of the hatch took some time, and then they have the readjustment of the posture of the astronauts, because maybe they could be upside down, facing.
That's right.
Yeah.
As in facing downwards,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, quite right. So they must be trained for this many times, because in most cases the capital will lying down during
Right.
the re-entry.
So I mean, if they were suspended essentially,
Suspended,
in air
exactly.
and facing downwards,
with their safety belt.
they'd have to be come down very carefully. Right?
So that is reason why we say that during the Shenzhou-16 mission, when the 3 astronauts coming out of the capital, they are in very good condition, because the vertical touchdown will be more comfortable than this.
Yeah. They're like lying on bed.
Yeah.
But all of these are efforts on, one of the major goals is to use the Chinese space station as a stepstone for more ambitious program like lunar missions.
Right.
Astronauts like we have mentioned, young generation astronauts are experiencing microgravity environment, working in that conditions, and in preparation for maybe future selection of lunar astronauts that can travel and work on the surface of the moon and then came back safely. All of these are, we call a stepping stone or a validation platform for future missions, in particular more ambitious missions of the moon and Mars.
Is there a possibility of the space station being used as sort of a platform to the moon? Like a pit stop
It's
before
just
you head off?
as you mentioned, it's just can be recognized as a platform to test all kinds of technologies for the lunar missions, for the human lunar mission. But that because of the features of orbital dynamics, our astronauts will go to the moon directly, not from the China's Tiangong space station. Because that to go to the moon, we must facing the moon directly with its orbit. But usually that is not the same orbital plane of the Tiangong space station. So that is the reason why we should go to the moon directly. Moreover, you see that we use the Long March 10, the new generation launch vehicle, to be the launch vehicle to be used in the future missions to the moon. And that's the Long March 10, especially the third stage. The third stage of the Long March 10 use the liquid hydrogen and the liquid oxygen as a propellant. And that the liquid hydrogen is very difficult to be stored in outer space for a long period. So they can only stay there in orbit for maybe 1 or 2 orbits and then just go to the moon to conduct what we call the translunar orbit insertion.
Right. So it has to be conducted from Earth.
Yeah. It is also interesting in these days, just on the social media, there is saying that Mr. Jiang Xinlin is the ideal one for the future lunar mission, because he has for the Mr. Jiang Xinlin from the Shenzhou-17 crew, because he not only has experience to piloting fighter jet, the experience to piloting a Shenzhou spaceship, but he also has the experience to drive a tank. So maybe he's very ideal for the future mission to drive our lunar rovers, manned lunar rovers on the lunar surface.
Or lunar tank.
He'll need to come back first from the space station and go through his rehabilitation and retraining.
Because that he's only 35 years old. For his first mission, he becomes a veteran after this Shenzhou-17 mission. So in the future, he has plenty of chances to go back to the outer space, even the future lunar mission.
Absolutely. I mean, by 2030, and that's just in the next few years, that will come much sooner than we expect. Well, the space station is also going to be expanded as well, right? So right now it's got these 3 modules, but it will eventually be expanded to 6, perhaps?
Yes, but first we will add the 4th module to the space station to change the configuration from a T-shaped one to a cross-shaped one. With the 4th module, that also a 20-ton level module, very huge. It will have more docking ports and more berthing ports. With more docking ports, we can add to have more than 3 spaceships, either a Tianzhou cargo spacecraft or a Shenzhou manned spacecraft attached to the station. So this brings more flexibility of the future arrangement of our different missions.
Right.
You know that during you may still remember just during the Shenzhou.
We're hearing from the search crew, the rescue crew.
Prepare for going out.
That's right. They've just announced the astronaut is preparing to come out now.
So that means that with the help of the ground team, especially the medical team, they've already accomplished the readaptation to the gravity. So they are in good shape.
Would they be experiencing a big change in the air? Would that be something that they could feel?
Not much difference. Probably only the temperature and the freshness.
Right.
The inner ear of the astronauts will feel, orientation on the Earth gravity. They have to find their center of gravities and directions. So they get oriented once they're landed. Right. So the inner ears and the brains get somehow adapted to the gravity of the Earth, and then they start the right movement. Sometimes they get disoriented once they landed immediately. So we see that the preparation of the chair, that is for
Mr. Jing Haipeng. Yeah. And also we can see a sleeping bag to keep him warm.
And also padded as well, right?
Oh, Mr. Jing Haipeng is already out of the capsule.
You can see him waving a little.
One out, 2 more to go.
And that's Captain Commander Jing Haipeng. We see they're back home, they're on Earth, but they are quite far from their first step back on Earth, right? It'll be a while yet.
But they will quickly adopt and stand up.
He's smiling, he's happy.
Yeah.
And we expect to hear from him as well. See the press, the reporters coming out.
Mr. Jing, welcome back. I'm with CMG. So, as the most experienced taikonaut of China, in your pursuit of dreams, you've been making breakthroughs after breakthroughs. So, what do you want to say to the people of China right now? At this moment, I am very excited. And finally, we've returned home to the embrace of our motherland. After 5 months of missions and all tasks are completely finished. And I think this trip to the China space station is a wonderful experience for me. And I want to also say on behalf of my two partners, for their wonderful experience and performance. They have done such a great job, and we led a happy life and efficient work experience in space, and no mistakes were made, and this is a zero mistake and perfect mission, and I think we have made all of the aspirations of the professionals into reality, and we have lived up to the expectations of the country, the party, and the people. And this is the result of joint efforts and teamwork. I think we can realize our dream and also exceed our dreams and create new dreams. And this would not be possible without instructions and the cultivation of the party and the people and the country. And I think my highest tribute goes to the country and also the times. We may be overloaded physically, but we cannot be overloaded mentally. And I'm always ready for the next mission and also make new contributions to China's aerospace missions. Last but not least, I want to speak on behalf of the Shenzhou-16 crew. I want to thank all of the people and my country. Thank you.
And that there is Commander Jing Haipeng. Very happy to be back.
So we can see that Commander Jing Haipeng is in very, very good condition and can give us a very great lecture.
Definitely. He sounds energetic, and I'm glad to hear that he said that they had a happy life up there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just, and he mentioned that 0 mistakes, right? Just completely smooth, completely successful. And importantly, they were happy there for 5 months.
And more important that he sing high praise of his 2 colleagues, the very young colleagues are from the 3rd generation.
And we see quick deflation of the face already. The swollen face has disappeared. In comparison with pictures a couple of days ago in the station,
right?
in the handover.
Oh, I didn't see those pictures, but the difference is very visible.
Drastic, yeah. It was shiny.
So be glad to be back to his normal self.
So you can see this is we have 3 this kind of ground vehicle,
and they're all numbered
each
there as
with
well.
a very comfortable condition for the astronaut. They can have their first meal there, and even it has toilet inside.
So
What kind of health checks do you think they'll be undergoing in these vans?
very comprehensive, but I think once they're in their own RV, they will be quite comfortable, and then they will start adopting the gravity and don't have to make too much effort, and they have to ship to medical center. There's a particular institute for astronauts to check their complete health conditions, including muscles, bone loss, cardiovascular systems, blood, temperatures, and all the details.
That'll be back in Beijing, right? These
checkups. That will be conducted back in Beijing.
So we're
And
expecting
we just heard a voice that
come
Mr.
out.
Zhu Yangzhu is going to go out of the
right.
vehicle
And there's his chair getting ready, preparing for him.
for Mr. Zhu Yangzhu, and our first flight engineer.
That's right.
Mr. Zhu Yangzhu is formerly a deputy professor from the Aerospace Engineering University. So he also has a PhD degree. So this crew is called doctor's crew. And
I mean, you could see the difference from when they were giving these lectures as well. They were clearly very experienced when we watched that space lecture. They're very experienced in teaching.
you know that he, like me, he also has a PhD degree on fluid dynamics. So I believe that he's very good at in charge of all the experiments on microgravity to studying the phenomena of fluid dynamics.
Well, that's the first application crew, and that's the doctor crew that they have a very high degree of education.
Right.
Even Mr. Gui is also professional education people.
But this would be very much the pattern of future missions, right? Future crews to the space station. This mix of pilots and mix of scientists.
Yes.
And here's Zhu Yangzhu coming out now. Lifted very carefully. You can see him waving as well. And we'll be able to hear from him very soon as well.
Wrap up and leaving one arm for salutation.
And probably, presumably, they've gone this whole time without any food either.
Hello, Mr. Zhu. Welcome back. As the first engineer in the space station after 5 months of working, what do you feel right now returning to Earth? Would you like to share with all of us? First of all, it's good to be back. I feel very lucky and honored to be the first space engineer to join a mission. At this moment, I would like to first of all thank the times, the new era. I think it is a perfect stage for us to realize our dreams, and it's our opportunity to make the best of the resources of our time, and with instruction of the controlling center and also support of all the researchers and engineers, the crew work together and pour our energies together to successfully complete all missions, and we have also witnessed the wonderful performance of the space lab of our space stations, and I will spare no efforts to work harder in the future so as to return to space, and we can have higher expectations for the space stations in the future.
And that's Zhu Yangzhu, and then he's talking about already talking about going back potentially to the space station, right? Looking forward to the next mission. So he's with the second, or is it the third batch of Chinese?
The third batch.
The third.
Yeah. Mr. Zhu Yangzhu and Ms. Gui Haichao are the first ones to conduct their further missions who comes from the third batch of astronauts. Also, you know that Mr. Zhang Zhu, his second case is less than, at this moment, his second case is less than 1 year old.
Aww. And he's missed the first half year.
So his family also do so great contribution to his career.
Absolutely.
Lots of expectation back to home, seeing his family.
But it's for them now, for these astronauts, you know, they're up in the space station so far away, but yet they can easily just contact family every day.
They
right?
do have a lot of access to internet and to communications.
They have video calls with their family members in their vision. We have formed this tradition to have, if they miss their family member, to have homesick, they can have a video call with his family.
So it's an extended work trip.
FaceTime.
So he's with the third batch of astronauts, and the ones, the Shenzhou-17 currently up there, they are a mix of third and second, right? Third and fourth?
It's the first time we only have the second and the third batch in the
second and third. Okay. The fourth batch is currently in training.
In chosen. In selection.
But Jing Haipeng is on the first batch.
Yeah.
Was
right.
He was born 1966, so he's 57 years old.
So this one is, the Shenzhou-16 is a mix of first and third.
Yeah.
And then the Shenzhou-17 is a mix of second and
third.
Yes. What's the sort of interval time between each batch of astronauts? Selection?
Basically, decade, generation difference. But the selection of first and second batch are based on Air Force background.
We have 14 members on the first batch, all male astronauts from the fighter pilots, and 7 on the second batch, 2 female and 5 male. And we have 18 on the third batch. Among the 18 members, we have 7 pilots, 7 flight engineers, and also 4 payload experts.
But I traveled with Liu Yang, the first lady astronaut to outer space. We traveled together to other countries, and on the way we were discussing about the different batches. And she said different batches do have like a generation gap. They don't communicate so much, and they don't feel so close to each other. But the same batch, they do feel like brothers. Yeah.
So then this sort of cross-generational crews that we have here.
It's based on work.
But as Jing Haipeng was saying, they were getting along very well.
After 5 months, I'm sure they have acquaintance and friendships.
Yeah, you'd hope so, right? They become like family after that long.
Otherwise, you can't survive.
Third and last astronaut coming out now. That's great, Haichao. And he's the payload expert.
Let's see if he's with his glass.
Nope, no glasses on.
So contact lenses works.
Yeah, there's no risk of contact lenses.
Welcome back, Mr. Gui. And as the first payload expert in the space station after 5 months of mission, what is your plan next? And how do you feel right now? I think our mission has been very smooth, and we've completed all tasks. And I feel very privileged to be the payload expert in the space station in the past 5 months. And would not be possible without the support of all the researchers and engineers. And we've been working together in the space station, and every day has been so fruitful and wonderful. And I have grew from a student to right now a teacher and then a taikonaut. And I think I could research in space right now, and this is all attributable to the cultivation of the party and the people, and also the joint efforts of all the taikonauts and space professionals. Whether in space or on ground, I will be forever longing for space and also practice my duty as a taikonaut and as a teacher, and will live up to my aspirations. And I look forward to returning to the space stations next time to do more expeditions. Thank you.
And that there is the third and final astronaut to come out of the Shenzhou-16 return capsule there. That's Haichao. He's also the first payload expert to go up to the China space station. And he too will be lifted off to his own personal medical van to get a more comprehensive medical checkup.
车内面积大概有12平米。
北京东风报告。
好的，现场的情况就是这样，这里是中央广播电视总台记者。
And we're hearing now from a reporter who's live with the CMG Chinese channel there.
So you see there's no salutation, there's no salute, only waving. So civilians back to Earth.
Mr. Gui Haichao also brings more hope to the common people to have the chance to visit other
And we're hearing from the Beijing ground.
正常返回东风着陆场。 3名航天员状况良好，神舟16号载人飞行任务取得圆满成功。
And that there was the message from the Beijing Ground Control Aerospace Control Center saying that the Shenzhou-16 astronauts have landed safely, they are well, and the 16 mission is successfully complete. So big congratulations to all of them. They'll be off to doing lots of comprehensive medical checks now to make sure that they are all well adjusted to Earth in this gravity condition.
熊鹰奖，3名航天员已抬送至1间1救车，现场转入载体内1间1
That is from the Shenzhou search crew there, also reporting back again the status and saying that the astronauts are well and transferred.
They're in monitoring, well, they call it health monitoring conditions. So the conditions are being closely monitored. All sensors will be attached to them, and also collecting bioinfos and data. And also the journey will take some time before they back to the airport for their final travel to Beijing.
Certainly very important data that the astronauts are carrying in their own bodies as well. So that there is the Shenzhou-16 crew returning to Earth. They landed at the Dongfeng landing site in Inner Mongolia, and that was a 5-month-long journey in space for Commander Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu and Gui Haichao. They went up there on May 30th, so 5 months there, lots of interesting experiments. So it'll be a long, complicated procedure now for them to recover. We're looking at 2 to 3 months, right, in rehabilitation, and then going back to training, and then maybe going up again in space. As we were hearing 2 of them already saying there that they're looking forward to the next journey back. But what do you think is the likelihood of that, though, for the next return? I mean, we're seeing the Shenzhou-17, one of the astronauts there, on a return after 2 years. How likely is it that some of these astronauts will be put back in rotation?
Well, I think these happen quite frequently. We have astronauts traveling 3 or 4 times back to Earth, even starting from Shenzhou earlier missions back to Tiangong and also this space station. The station is going to be permanently human attended by 3 people and half-year rotations. We know there will be astronauts that needs to go back, and each mission are selected and chose very carefully. We see that these Shenzhou-16 mission were there to commissioning the station, including the test out and deployment of all facilities for scientific experiments and collecting data back to Earth. And Shenzhou 15 and 14 mission, we know that for the construction of the station itself. So each mission is, the astronauts are selected quite meticulously to fit the mission itself. With experiments gained by the Shenzhou-16 mission, I think they would be returning back to the station to check out the parameters, and according to their experiences in the 16 mission, different changes in the station itself, starting from the very beginning. So I think in between a couple of missions, one of them will be going back.
What about the Generation 1 astronauts then? Do you think they'll be able to make a return anytime soon, or would age be a limit here?
Well, I think the age, we have the first generation astronauts are still functioning at this moment, up to, a bit less than 60. So physical conditions are less of a factor with the progress of space technologies, including astronautic human support systems.
Yeah.
The more sophisticated we are getting technologies, the less rigid we are with the conditions of the astronauts. So civilians, elderly people, first generation astronauts are ready to go back.
And it would also be interesting, I think, from a scientific point of view, to see the effect of space on age as well.
Exactly.
Right?
You see, that's the study of the influence of microgravity, the impact of this microgravity environment to the old people is also a very meaningful study in space medicine. From this aspect, you see that we can reasonably see that the oldest astronaut visiting outer space is John Glenn. John Glenn visited outer space with the age of 77. So the major task of his mission is to study the impact of the microgravity field environment to the old people. So I believe that in the future, maybe possibly that China also conduct this kind of study, very, very useful for all of us. Moreover, you see that we have all kinds of returns from our manned space program, but one return is the scientific research result getting from the influence of our astronauts to benefit the patients lying in bed for a long period of time, because they also have the similar impact, influence of the weakening of the neural system, weakening of the muscle system, or loss of bones, these kind of things. So the countermeasure we adopted for the astronauts, long-term duration in orbit, also very useful for them. Moreover, you see that in the future, we also the moon will not be the end of our human activities in space, but also sooner or later we can see our Chinese astronauts walk on the Mars. So the long-term duration beyond the low Earth orbit, we will have more dangerous radiation and even long study in microgravity fields. We must study first in our Tiangong space station. So we can hope to see, as you already mentioned, the Tiangong space station will be a very good laboratory for the future preparation work for these even more challenging missions.
And it will be expanded as well, right, to include more astronauts. At the moment, the highest number has been 6.
Quite right. As we've already discussed, so the next generation manned spaceship, we have 2 versions. One is for the future moon missions. We will have 3 crew members inside this capsule for lunar missions. But for the low Earth missions, we will have up to 7 crew members. And also, moreover, you know that if we can add more modules to extend our Tiangong space station, maybe finally we can have a combination about 180-ton level. With this huge combination, we can support the constant study of maybe more than 3 people, maybe 6 crew members. So we can conduct more larger scale scientific research works inside this station. And the new generation manned spacecraft will be a good support to this kind of arrangement. So in the future, after the Long March 10 rocket come into service, and also together with the new generation manned spaceship, we can expand our station and also expand our scientific research. I believe that we can more frequently see not only the Chinese astronauts, but also we can see the visitors from other countries.
Well, I read something about this saying that the design of the space station, once it's expanded, also includes potentially separation of the modules and flying kind of parallel to each other. Am I right in understanding that, or is that?
But there's a flying, what we call flyby, or accompanying flying. That's one of the telescope was originally designed to be attached to the station, has been separated from the station, but is flying in a close proximity and close orbit. So it's like a Hubble telescope, but a Chinese version. But it's going to use the space station as a maintenance hub for the telescope.
Xuntian.
Yes.
Yeah.
The telescope is called Xuntian. And also, you mentioned about the expansion of the station.
Yeah.
That's not only a physical, structural expansion, but also you have to attach your air circulations, your vacuum systems, your life support systems, your your conditions on the station is enlarged, and also the altitude control is more complex because you are expanding from 60 or 90 metric tons to over 100 tons. So that will be also challenging for the control and the maintenance of the station itself.
So the Professor, you were saying the next step would be to turn the space station from T-shape into cross, so adding an attachment onto the other end. Right?
Yeah.
When is that going to happen during the Shenzhou-17 mission? Are they going to be welcoming?
You know that according to the formal announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, the fourth module is just in design phase.
Okay.
So we still need maybe several years for the module to come into service. But maybe in the near future, maybe next year or 2025, we can see the launch of the Xuntian module, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the Chinese version of Hubble Space Capsule. The difference is that one thing, you know that the aperture of the Xuntian is 2 meters, very similar to the 2.4 meters of the Hubble Space Telescope. So the resolution of the Xuntian is as good as the Hubble Space Telescope. But the difference is that the field of view of our Xuntian is 300 times larger than Hubble Space Telescope. So we can get more information in one single image, 300 times more than the Hubble Space Telescope. So it can be used to see all kinds of phenomena in outer space. Moreover, you see that another advantage of Xuntian is that it is optimized on the system level. Because you know that the Hubble Space Telescope is orbiting the Earth with the inclination of 28 degrees, while the International Space Station with a different inclination of about 51.6 degrees. So there's no chance for the astronauts on the International Space Station to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. It can only be repaired by a single launch dedicated to this rendezvous with Hubble. But you know that, as Mr. Xu mentioned, the Xuntian, although in most of the cases, it works independently, flying independently in outer space, but it operates Earth in the same orbit plane of the Tiangong Space Station. So if we need some maintenance, upgrades, or repair, we just rendezvous and dock with the station, and the new updates of or the repaired parts, we only need to bring that to the station by the Tianzhou spacecraft. So we can use the minimum cost to repair or maintain or upgrade our Xuntian. So it is optimized with the lowest cost and with the lowest level of resources. So it is optimized on the system level.
Yeah, and also the Hubble has been operating for more than a decade, and also lots of impairments, because once it's in orbit, the images become blur, and you have to change a lot of softwares and facilities by shuttle missions. It's very expensive to maintain the Hubble telescope, but also there is a big community in U.S. It's called Hubble huggers. They have to make sure that the Hubble is alive. But with the Xuntian and also the Chinese station, the Hubble huggers can come back to the usage of the Xuntian facility and to have more observation of the astronomies and observations. So this will be very useful, not only for Chinese scientific community, but for international cooperations.
Absolutely.
And also in the beginning designing phase, it is designed to be maintained as part of the station.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much potential out there. So what sort of international cooperation projects are currently in the works that we know of?
Well, I know the Chinese space station is completed its commissioning, and it's in operation phase with the Shenzhou-16 crew already using the station for 5 months. As Mr. Jing Haipeng mentioned, everything went smooth. We had an opening of the application because using the station is very important, not only the construction. The application by using the platform of the Chinese space station has been opened to the international community through the United Nations of Outer Space Affairs, which is based in Vienna. We opened that announcement for the first time with 9 candidates already, some of them flying already on board the station, including some cancer curing experiments. And the second batch is also opened for international community. As I mentioned, has to be very innovative, has never been flown on other platforms such as International Space Station, and has to be beneficiary to all cooperating parties. These are just one of the cooperating parts of the station. Others, including astronaut cross trainings, and also invitation of international payloads on board. And all of these can be international cooperations, and the scientific return of the experiments can also be shared by the international scientific community.
The China Manned Space Agency has already released all kinds of standard interface, either the racks inside station and also the interface outside station. I mean that the standards on the power supply, mechanical interface, and also the handling of signals, and also the thermal interface, all kinds of this kind of interface, either the racks, the scientific research racks inside station, and also the platforms outside station. So it makes it possible and also make it very relatively easy for the astronauts and engineers in other countries to study their scientific research payload and instruments to be compatible with the China's Tiangong space station. And only with the help of the assistance of the robotic arms of our Tiangong space station, all the operations of the astronauts, they can easily to operate these scientific research instruments and conduct their scientific research. What Mr. Xu mentioned, the 9 experiments, is from 17 countries, which is originally by the calling for proposals from the UNOSA, or United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, and joined together with the China Manned Space Agency.
Well, absolutely, so much to look forward to. Thank you so much to the both of you for accompanying us through this live broadcast of the return of the Shenzhou-16. Appreciate it so much. Learned a lot from you, Professor Yang Yuguang and Mr. Xu Yensong. Now, we do also have our reporter Sun Ye, who is standing by for us at the landing site. So let's check in with Sun Ye. So you've been following the whole landing process, Sun Ye. What was that like? Sun Ye, hi. I don't know if you can hear me better now.
Hey there, Jiayang. We're here at Dongfeng landing site, and Shenzhou-16 crew has landed back home on Earth here at the Dongfeng landing site. I think you have just heard their first emotional, heartfelt words on the ground. Now, we were out of that earshot, but what we can hear, what we were hearing, are people here cheering for the heroic return for the space heroes. We are at the landing site. This is in the middle of nowhere. We're often out of connection, but local herdsmen, when they heard about the Shenzhou-16 crew, they were arriving, they tried to come here, and of course there are a large number of people who work in the space industry. They wanted to see the heroic return for the Shenzhou-16 crew, and of course the Shenzhou-16 crew, they barely had any rest in the last few days. On Sunday they had a handover with the Shenzhou-17 crew, and when even after the Shenzhou-16 spaceship detached from China's space station, they were still working. They took the first full view picture of the China space station, and that's hardly the only first thing they have done. They had a lot of first attempts. Of course, the Shenzhou-16 crew, they are the first crew to enter into Tiangong after China space station entered its long-term operation. It's the first crew to be made up of a pilot, a flight engineer, and a payload specialist. They have done so much in their 5-month stay there, and now they do deserve some rest. Right now they are in medical vehicles not far away from where I am. They are readjusting to gravity. They are having some rest before they go back to Beijing. But the job is not done here too, here at the Dongfeng landing site, and you will be able to see the recovery team are still working on the return capsule. Now they are retrieving, they're taking out the things that taikonnauts have taken home for us. Those include scientific experiment materials, and some of the results coming from the months of their stay in the China space station. And the recovery team here are also going to fireproof this cabin, this return cabin, and they're also going to check it before they power it off. So we have a little bit time with this piece of spacecraft that's of course now of historical significance. Jiayang.
Thank you so much, Sun Ye, at the Dongfeng landing site for us. So after 5 months in space, there we have it. Jing Haipeng, Yangzhu and Haichao, the astronauts of the Shenzhou-16, finally home, and this marks the success of their mission. And that also brings us to the end of our special coverage today, and we'll leave you with a look at their journey home. I'm Jiayang in Beijing. From all of us here, thanks for watching.
返回舱着陆。
高铁到达广州。北京01号，高铁到达广州返回舱着陆，报告完毕。
可以安全着陆，感觉很好，请大家放心。
祝贺神舟16号，你们辛苦了，向你们致以崇高的敬意。
重要航天员已出舱。
我们终于回家了，回到祖国母亲的怀抱。
中国空间站永远值得期待。